Hi, friends! Welcome back. We're back with the second or third episode now of Star Trek Adventures as we continue the story of our crew. It's really awesome to be back tonight and to be back with these wonderful people here with me. Let's go around and say hello. Tristan, how you doing? Excited for tonight?
Very, very. I wanna find out what's going with these things. Tentacle monster. Space creeps. Yeah. All in.
I think we all do. I can't wait to see you all discover them and try to probe into what they are a bit more. And we have our wonderful Stiltech. Aaron, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm looking forward to wrangling a few more of these darkness monsters.
That was a pretty smart move last week. So I wonder if it will work for you again. And then we have...
Yeah, well, I'm down one phaser, so hopefully not, you know.
Good job you grabbed that phaser rifle. And then we have our wonderful engineer, Illyria. How are you doing, Jordan?
I am good. I'm so excited. I've been waiting all week for this. So let's go.
Oh, and then we have the wonderful Ro, our chief petty officer. How are you doing, Raven?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to seeing if I can fly that weird looking ship. We'll see.
And last but not least, our very important chief medical officer, Malco. How are you doing, Max?
I'm doing very well. I'm super excited to see where this all goes tonight, so I'm ready.
You and me both. Speaking of seeing where this goes tonight, don't forget that if you want to catch up on last week's show, if you missed it, or any of the other shows here on Encounter Roleplay, you can go over and watch all the shows on the Encounter Roleplay YouTube channel. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hello, thanks for being here and watching this adventure to see what happens. Next up, we've got to talk about the awesome sponsors that we have over here on Encounter Roleplay that help make all of this possible. And to do that, we're going to go over to Past Charlie so she can tell us about those wonderful, wonderful folks. Past Charlie, take it away.
Before we begin today's show, I would like to take some time to remind you about our sponsors. Fantasy Grounds, our virtual tabletop of choice. All of the beautiful maps and roles you see tonight are done using Fantasy Grounds, which you can try for free at fantasygrounds.com. You can also get all of your miniatures from Wayland Games. Go to waylandgames.co.uk and get yourself a huge range of D&D, Warhammer and 40k minis for up to 20% off regular retail price. And Tabletop Loot, who sell incredible dice. Go and check them out at tabletoploot.com.
Thank you, Past Charlie, for shouting out all of the awesome sponsors here. And don't forget, stream, if you want to interact with what's going on tonight, if you want to help our players out or maybe send them a bane instead of a boon, you can do so. Down in the panels below, you'll see the little tips menu there. You can give our players critical successes, which is an auto success. You can grant them critical failures. You can give them banes or boons. You can give big crits and give all of the cards an auto success. You can even create an NPC, or for £100, you can get ultimate power, where you and I can make something fun happen during the stream. Don't forget to retweet the Going Live tweet when it pops up in chat. And don't forget to clip anything you find funny and watch out for the poll that will be starting soon. But now we head back to the planet that our crew are on, shrouded in complete darkness almost, as they stand at the edge of an impact crater after having discovered strange creatures within the inky black that make up the unnatural atmosphere of this planet. They found some of the Vulcan science crew back at the base. Their EV suits had been smashed in, the power drained, but otherwise unharmed. Well, they were still dead, but unharmed in the sense that nothing had physically injured them. They'd simply died of exposure to this toxic atmosphere. You took a day's travel on one of the desert flyers, the kind of sand buggies that they had here, to the impact crater that you got from the coordinates in the Vulcan's report. There were reports of these impact sites all across the planet. This was simply the closest to the base, and the Vulcan Expeditionary group here never checked back in after leaving. The impact crater is huge, and in the kind of inky darkness here, you made out what looked to be some kind of ship. It appeared to almost be dissolving away in front of your eyes, this kind of mist-like substance coming from it. And this is where you all stand, at the edge of this impact crater as you arrive. What do you all do now that you're here?
How big is the crater?
The crater itself, it's difficult because you can't see the other side.
Sure.
And you didn't have any, the team never reported back. So you didn't even have any information from there. But you're guessing just by the kind of almost curvature of it that you're getting a sense of and where you stand. It's pretty large.
Okay.
And the ship that you're seeing is pretty large. And obviously it would take a bit, especially in this darkness, to work out the kind of speed it must have impacted in order to create such a large impact crater. But the ship itself is not small by any imagination.
Okay. Now I'm going to patrol the rim while everyone else checks it out, and I'm going to just cover everyone. Phaser, rifle armed.
Okay. Bearing in mind that from here, your visibility of the group is going to be very low.
Oh,
You'll probably be able
right.
to make out
I
headlamps.
will stick with the group. Right. That's not going to work. I'll stick with them then. I'll let them do the science stuff. I'll pay attention to any threats.
But yeah, so it is still kind of that thick inky blackness here, but obviously you have got some lights from the desert buggy, which are a bit more powerful than the ones on your EV suits, which is what's letting you kind of see the ship itself. Had you not had those lights, you would be in complete darkness. You wouldn't have even known that the impact crater was here, except for the coordinates. So you can leave that on if you wish. It has got enough power to supply light for a good while, but even that's not. It's enough to kind of make out the shape of the ship, and this you can see it's like a black mist almost that's coming from it, or it looks like it, or whether or not it's the atmosphere, it's hard to tell. It's that kind of smoke in front of a light effect that you're seeing off in the distance.
And there's no lights coming from the ship at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
I think Ro, she's gonna sort of poke her head out of the glider, kind of look at that and just go, "Profits, knickers, that thing's huge. I kind of want to fly it, not gonna lie, but hey, I got an idea. Hold on." And I think Ro's gonna try to set a beacon on the glider that might ping on our communicators or maybe something in the suit, so that we kind of know where we are in relation to the glider, even if we're trapped in the darkness.
Yeah, I'll say that you can do that. You've got tricorders with you, so you can definitely set something up that your tricorders could recognize on the buggy. I'd imagine it's got some kind of beacon built into it anyway, in the event that it gets moved, so that you can keep an eye on that. So you can activate that and have it emit that signal that you can track.
Perfect. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then start inching my way to the edge of where the light is, trying to get a closer look at this giant ship.
Okay, as you start edging closer, you start to get a better look at this craft. It looks like the hull plating around it is thick, and that mist almost coming off of it is not a trick of the light. It literally looks like there is black, grey atmosphere just kind of wafting from the actual hull exterior itself, which eventually dissipates into the darkness around you.
Wow. Would you say it's more like a steam, or more like a dry ice kind of mist?
It's almost like dry ice. It's not particularly see-through. It's that kind of quite thick, You would imagine that if you were to pass your bare hand over it, it wouldn't just be like smoke where it's almost just like that thin, light feeling of air, that it would actually, you'd have some force from it as this mist kind of evaporates off of the hull and into the space around you.
Okay.
But this is still from a little bit of I imagine you're kind of like halfway to the ship in order to kind of see this. What is everyone else doing?
I would like to be the starship expert that I am and figure out whatever I can figure out about this particular craft.
Okay, I'm not going to make you roll for this because you are a starship expert. So I imagine perhaps are you joining where Ro is, about halfway to the ship, or do you want to go right up to it?
Yes, she would probably join where Ro is. She's not quite bold enough to go alone yet.
So you go up to the ship and you get the same now closer look that Ro gets of the exterior hull. This very thick, dark. You can't even tell whether it's metal or something else from here, and that thick evaporating mist. You try to look for identifying features. For Starfleet, you're looking for things like the nacelles. Where are they? What shape? Does it have any particular construction look that would identify it as Federation or Romulan or Klingon? And the more you look, the stranger this ship gets. You can't find nacelles. You can't find where you'd expect things to be. The ship itself is, it's not quite as big as a starship. It's almost like if you want a Starfleet shuttle, maybe kind of double the size of a Starfleet, like a standard Starfleet shuttle is what you're looking at.
Like the size of a runabout?
Probably not even that big. Illyria, you definitely know from looking at it that the shape of this and the size of it would probably indicate that it's not a multi-room vessel or anything like that. Like, it's probably enough that from the sides of it, a human, it's maybe almost like the older shuttles where they're almost like a corridor, that perhaps where bits would be sectioned off. This isn't like a huge thing you could explore, but it's kind of also hard to tell because it's like buried part into the ground. But with all of your expert on ships, Federation, and otherwise, this is truly completely an alien vessel. You've never seen a hull material emits this kind of... This isn't smoke from an impact. This is the hull itself is giving off this strange evaporation. The shape of the vessel is all wrong. You've never seen anything like this before. It hasn't got like a front view screen. It hasn't got a pod-like area to it that you would expect a craft designed for, humanoid creatures to use. Everything about the ship is entirely alien.
When you say that it's evaporating, is the ship disappearing as it evaporates, or is this smoke just continuously coming off it?
Are you also joining Illyria and Ro to take a closer look?
I'd imagine I'm like close to them because I have to be to see them. So I'm
Sure.
I'm just like, I'm curious. Yeah.
As you join them, it's kind of hard to tell because you have got this thick black atmosphere and it's dark. It doesn't look like anything's rapidly disappearing. Like the ship isn't kind of suddenly becoming not there in places that you can see, but it's definitely coming off of the hull is what you can make out.
Okay.
I think that as she walks closer and observes the ship, Ro, you can hear her verbally going through her brain process of, okay, well, where's this? That's not there. That's really weird. Is that on this particular ship? Can I remember this? And she's going on this rampage, and as she goes on this little mental verbal rampage of figuring out what's happening, she's slowly inching closer to this ship because she's so distracted by trying to figure out what it is. So I think that she almost doesn't get too far because she'll catch herself. But she definitely is starting to step away from the group, focused on what's going on with the ship.
How close to the ship would you like to get?
So how far are we currently?
You're probably maybe 10 or 12 meters from it, so nowhere within kind of touching distance range. It's hard to still make out any details in the darkness, but you can approach the ship if you wish.
I think that she's just going to go half that distance and then realize that she's not quite with the group anymore, unless they were to follow her on her little brain venture.
I was gonna say, I think Ro will follow Illyria a little bit, but before we get too far out of the light, she's just gonna put a hand on her shoulder and go, everything okay, Commander?
Yeah, and she kind of snaps out of it for a second, and she's like, this is just, we've never seen anything like this, and and she loses like her words for a second, and like is just staring at the ship, like with a very focused look on her face, and you can tell like her brain is going 20 miles a minute trying to piece together what she does know about this ship that is so foreign.
As you get within a few meters of the ship itself, you get a better look at that outer hull. It's not metal. It's a thick substance, and if you pull out a tricorder, it appears to be silicon-based, just like the atmosphere around you. And there is that thick mist is actually coming from the outer placing of the hull. It almost looks like in places it's fizzing. Like this outer hull substance is fizzing, and that's where this thick black, mist is coming from. You also detect as you get closer that the temperature of the air has increased slightly. You'll be able to see this. I imagine your EV suits will notify you, or your tricorders will. What I want to know is, Malco and Tristan, what are you doing right now? Are you joining your fellow officers, or are you investigating something else around this crater? Are you watching safely from a distance to see what happens when they get near it before doing so yourself?
Tristan's probably going to be trying to see if that presence that he could sense through his empathic abilities is getting any stronger the closer we get to this craft.
Yes.
Okay.
As you get a little bit closer, that feeling of something like a presence in the back of your mind, rather than that kind of passive all around you sense, you suddenly start to pick up something. There's something less passive here. Whether that's the ship, whether that is another one of those creatures somewhere out in the darkness around you, you're not sure, but you definitely feel that leap between a passive presence and an active one.
Okay. I will sort of get on communicator and just make sure everyone is aware. I'll just like, we may have company. I'm not sure what, but be safe.
And Malco, at this point, where are you? What are you doing?
Malco at this point would be wanting to keep up as much as possible with kind of the majority of the group as they kind of slowly make their way towards the ship, but he's going to take a moment and kind of just take a second, and he wants to go and individually he'll go up to Celtec and say, how are the lungs? How are you feeling? How you pulled off something massive from a creature? Are you doing okay physically?
He looks, Celtic looks a little uncomfortable as soon as you mention the lungs, right? Because he's still a little sensitive, but he nods and he pulls out a tricorder and he begins to scan for any movement around us. I'll be all right. Thanks for asking.
Okay, so you're scanning for movement.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll go over to Illyria and just say, you were really close to the fire. Did you get burned or anything? How are you doing physically?
And she will like confirm that she's fine, but you can tell she's very distracted. She's so intrigued. But but yeah, she'll show you. And
All right. And then he'll go up to Ro and just say, there was a spark that came from your suit. Are you doing okay? Like, that was fixed, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm fine. The suit. I was a little worried about the suit there for a little bit, but it seems all right now.
Good. And then he'll
thanks,
kind of, of course, and he'll kind of give a look to Tristan to see if he wants to follow up and just check in with him, maybe mentally.
Yeah, definitely.
So, are you as a group now kind of all moving forward? Are you all getting a little bit closer to this ship, kind of joining back up together, or is anyone waiting on the sidelines?
I would say that again. I'm putting, like, if they're closer to the ship, I'm putting myself just a little bit closer to the darkness, just so I'm the first thing that anything would hit.
Cool. Okay. As you are standing there, nothing. Siltec, you don't pick up anything of movement around. Which is even odder for you, Tristan, because you would expect there to be something further out. Now, your tricorders have been recalibrated. You're not dealing with the interference of the atmosphere, but that active presence hasn't gone. All of you now, as you step up closer to this ship, you can tell the air temperature here has risen. Not dangerously high by any means, but it's definitely hotter. Much hotter than an air temperature should be this long after an impact. You know, you'd expect at impact there could be fire as something burns up in the atmosphere and it gets dragged down with it, but the air temperature here is far hotter than it should be. And it appears to be coming from the ship itself as well. You can see that the ship itself appears to be some kind of opening. Whether this is intentional or not is difficult to tell. But there definitely appears to be some kind of entrance of some kind now that you're all a bit closer and you've got your kind of collective light as well. The more of you together, the better you're able to see because of the amount of light increase. But what do you all do now? You're now kind of watching this, and Tristan, you can confirm what you've seen from the distance about the outside of the hull as well.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly sort of do a quick empath sweep of the crew, just sort of check in to see how people are feeling, see if there's anything going on that I need to know about or anything like that.
Are you telling them about this, or are you just trying to see what you can sense from them?
I'll tell them that I'm doing a check-in and see how everyone's feeling.
Tense. It's my first away mission, so I'm tense.
Understandable.
Rose feeling probably a little bit worried, a little concerned, sort of just alert because of the danger, but also is really excited because she's seeing a ship she's never seen before.
How about Malco? How are you feeling at this moment? As you've now approached the ship, you can now see it. You've confirmed your crew all appear to be okay.
Definitely there's an undercurrent of like nervousness because this is something that no one has dealt with. But just doing his best to put on a decent, brave front just to keep morale up.
And how about Illyria? How is she doing?
Overwhelming curiosity, but also there's like this underlying desire because all she wants to do is touch the ship, but all of her says that's a bad idea. So she's like weighing the pros and cons of touching the ship.
Illyria, I will give you a point of determination if you go with the the value that you have here, that every problem has a solution, and I will do what must be done to find it, to go with that urge to touch the ship.
I'm gonna touch the ship.
You may have a point of determination as you will watch as Illyria. I imagine you're still kind of talking to yourself, still trying to pick out something that you can familiarize yourself with as you find yourself stepping forward until you are at the ship, until you can see that strange entrance and place your hand on the outer hull. You place your hand there, and that's what snaps you out of that moment, that thinking, that analysis, because it's hot. As in, it almost burns through your EV suit hot. You can feel the temperature. And you manage to pull your hand away. And luckily, the EV suit protects you from what would have been an incredibly horrific burn. Because you can feel the heat as the EV suit begins to dissipate it. But you also watch as the area that you touch as you pull away, it just kind of begins to crumble. Not into dust necessarily, but kind of into chunks, which then begin to give off even more of this black smoke, or this mist that's coming off of it. But the outer hull is far hotter than it has any business being, considering that these impacts were from days ago.
I think that with the whole touching it and it being like the burning thing, like that's something that she's experienced before, so she's actually gonna phase out for a second, very distracted because events trigger memories and stuff like that. But as soon as she takes a minute and takes a breath and recenters herself, she's gonna turn around and relay the information that she has back to her friends.
I would like, Malco, as you hear this information relayed back, that the surface of the hull is dangerously hot and crumbling and appears to be the source of this black smoke. Could you go ahead and just make me a reason plus science test with a difficulty of 2, please? You do have a point of momentum in the bank if you'd like to buy an extra dice with it. Or you can give me some threat to buy even more extra dice if you wish.
So my reason and science are pretty solid, so I'm gonna hold off on using that for now.
Sure. Do you have any focuses? What are your focuses?
Focuses. Surgery, xenobiology, infectious diseases, triage, gaseous life form xenobiology, and then sports films.
Okay, so gaseous life form xenobiology will apply here.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So go ahead, make a test. So you're rolling 2d20, and you're looking for 2 successes.
Okay.
Oh, that is not a good roll. Do you
Oh.
have any values here that you might be able to use to re-roll, or have you spent all your determination?
In order to
Wow.
ascertain the substance of the whole, I lick it. That's basically what you just did.
Oh no. Okay.
Do you have any determination left?
I think I do. I haven't spent any. Yeah, I don't think any of my talents, unfortunately, apply to this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Would you like to
I-
succeed at cost?
You do have that auto
Yeah.
success sitting on your window
Oh,
there.
do I?
You do. I will happily let you retroactively use your auto success if you wish. Or you can save it and succeed at cost, which means something happens, but you do essentially pass the test.
See, now I'm worried with the Lyra right by the hot door. I will use my success.
Okay, so you're going to spend that auto success. I am still going to have. I'm still going to take the threat for those complications. I'll probably come up
Of
in a
course.
minute. Oh, that's a nice amount of threat sitting there. I've currently got 20 threat in my pool. So you, upon hearing this from Illyria, and having seen the information you had, and proving the theory that some kind of terraforming process happening here, you figure out very quickly there is a direct chemical correlation between the erosion of the hull and the atmosphere change here. What changed the atmosphere was a massive, some kind of catalyzed chemical reaction forming the gas. And this ship, this strange craft, appears to be, as it's evaporating, stealing oxygen from the atmosphere and reacting with it to create that silicon oxygen molecule that you have picked up. You think, judging by how quickly this is clearly happening, that if allowed to continue, the decomposition as such of the ship itself would probably only take a matter of weeks, as slowly the outer hull is catalyzed and transformed into what makes up this atmosphere. You are almost certain that this is what's causing that kind of terraforming process.
Okay. And I will relay that to the group and also add on, we need to stop this. This is not good by any means. You
do also know that there are a good dozen of these all across the planet. That in itself is something that's probably outside of your hands as a crew right now. Definitely something that perhaps you could call in aid from the rest of Starfleet for, but without knowing more about what the ship is, it's hard to tell. It is also worth noting this planet isn't technically colonized, nor does it technically belong to anybody in particular. So as such, it's not as if there is a civilization on this world that already existed, or a colony here as well. So what do you all do from here?
I think Ro's going to chime in and say, hey, if these things are what's causing all the black stuff to go into the air and change the atmosphere, could we just get a transporter lock on all of them and put them back into space? You probably have to do them one at a time, but
I think we'd be killing them.
Well, I mean, first contact didn't really go the best. They don't seem the most interested in talking.
Perhaps not, but they didn't necessarily seem interested in hurting anything either. There was no damage to the Vulcans that we found. Yes, they were dead, but it didn't seem malicious.
Dead is dead, malicious or not.
I
As
never
locks
thought I'd
his
say
face
this,
up
but I
right.
agree with the Cardassian.
He raises an eyebrow. He wasn't really. I wasn't really raised knowing to distrust or I know the background. I'm aware of that our peoples don't get along, but you're literally like, maybe except for a couple people in my Starfleet class, one of the first Bajorans I've ever met. So I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
I mean, I'm pretty unusual for a Bajoran, so I wouldn't use me as your measuring stick, as it were.
Well, I reckon I'm
Most
unusual
Bajorans,
for a Cardassian.
You very much are. Most Bajorans are a little bit more spiritual than I am, as you may have figured out that I am not.
Most Cardassians, I can't even say my own people's name. Most Cardassians tend to lie. I tend to shoot a little bit straighter.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. And I'd lock my phaser rifle and go back on patrol.
Okay. I imagine that patrol really is kind of walking between, like
5
what
feet
you
this
can
way, 5
see,
feet that way.
5 feet that way, and just back and forth.
Yeah.
I almost imagine it almost that fresh out of the academy way, where you're like, okay, I know I can't go too far.
Right.
You don't want to go too far. I imagine it's almost like you're patrolling, even though you know you could just stand with the group and stand there, but it's the act of, this is what a patrol is. I patrol.
I gotta
as
look
opposed to
busy.
just- yeah.
Yeah.
I think Ro would probably notice that and just sort of chuckle, like, officers, kind of roll her eyes and go about her business.
Well, you are all stood at this ship. You can see this strange kind of entrance. Illyria, you've already touched it, and where you have done, it's kind of crumbled and begun to produce more of that silicate gas. Tristan, that presence is still very obvious here, despite your tricorder showing nothing. Nothing living in the vicinity.
I think that
What are you? Oh, go on.
maybe we should actually look for the party that was sent out here before investigating inside. I mean, that's why we're here.
Maybe take a trip around this crater if we could.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. You all have a walk around the crater, Siltec. Finally, you get to actually patrol and walk around. The exterior of the ship, in terms of the material of the hull, is uniform across. You can see in some places where it's already begun to heavily degrade. Illyria, go ahead. Make me a... I think this would be reason and engineering test with a difficulty of 2, please.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Let's see what talents you have here. Go ahead and use your warp core technology focus as well. So that means that if you roll a 5 or under on any dice, it's going to be 2 successes.
Sweet.
What do you?
Wait, no, it's not a 5 or under. Okay, and I'm
Do you
sorry,
have
it was reason and what?
Reason and engineering.
Okay. That's not bad. Okay, so I had to... Okay, 15 is that score. So I think I succeeded on both.
Yes, you did. So you haven't got more successes than you need, so there's no momentum there. But as you walk around towards what you would describe anyway, judging by the impact, if it impacted front end first, what looks to be the evidence of some kind of warp drive from the rear of this ship. It's the first kind of bit that you kind of recognize. And it looks like this ship was it's not so much warp drive as you look closer. It looks like it should be warp drive, but it's not. It's a very odd thing to look at, because the impact that this thing has had clearly suggests ships that are capable of incredibly fast speeds, and you can tell that there is some quantum engineering going on here just by what you're actually looking at. Almost like warp drive, but not quite. The vessel itself you don't think would be warp capable, but there is definitely something going on here which allows the craft to propel itself to sublight speeds, to do with kind of quantum mechanics and quantum engineering. It's almost like warp, but not quite. It's just in that realm of just a bit too alien to draw a parallel to something that you're familiar with. But you recognize the kind of mechanics here and the kind of quantum engineering that this would require.
I think Illyria doesn't verbalize any of that currently, but she's going to actually verbally say, I want to go in the ship.
I'm not sure if that's a good idea, Lieutenant.
And Illyria's just gonna... Go ahead, sorry.
How about this? How about if we link tricorders together and toss one of them inside? Get some readings firsthand before you step foot inside that.
She begrudgingly agrees.
If touching the hull caused your suit to almost evaporate, I imagine a tricorder's not going to last a whole lot longer.
But if that's the external, does that necessarily mean it's the internal?
Well, I'd rather waste a tricorder than you, Lieutenant. If I lose one of my officers on my first mission, they ain't gonna send me on another one.
She like hands her tricorder and waits impatiently.
So as you circle back round the other way to the ship, back towards where that entranceway was, you do notice another part of this vessel that is clearly kind of crumbled in on itself to some degree on this outer hull plating, almost in a similar fashion to how when you kind of touched it, Illyria, it kind of caved in a bit before evaporating. And it looks like Malco, you probably spot this before anyone else does, because of your knowledge of xenobiology. But this section, as it's folded away and crumbled, and you're looking into what would be like removing the outer hull plating on a bit of a starship. You're not looking into the interior of the ship, but you'd be looking into its internals. You'd probably see, you'd expect to see piping and tubing and cables. But instead, you see something that looks far closer to organs. Something that would suggest, a biology to similar to things that you have seen and have read studies about in large alien entities, some of which can be of the size of ships like this, sometimes bigger. But these definitely remind you of organs. What organs entirely, you're not sure, but these almost look fleshy. And your tricorder shows that they are silicate-based. This thing perhaps was alive. Perhaps it was some kind of living creature itself as a ship, but it is almost certainly dead. And that would draw further, that would conclude with the fact that it's beginning to evaporate, almost like decomposition.
Okay. And kind of realizing this, he'll say, Illyria, I don't think this is a standard ship. I don't think this is a ship even at all. That's not wiring. That looks like tubing or internals.
And she gets this really confused look on her face, and then she begins to relay the information about the warp drive that's not really a warp drive, but obviously is capable of technological, it looks, she knows it, it makes sense to her, and that's how do you, I want to be half machine, half person. Tell me how to do this. Sorry.
And I imagine you circle back round towards the entrance
Yeah.
of the ship, where
When
you
you
can
say
see
entrance, is it like a door or is it just an opening?
It's not so much a
Is it
door.
a mouth? Okay.
It doesn't appear to look like a mouth. What it
Okay.
appears is it looks not so much like a crack in the outer hull, but definitely something it's got that outer hull plating, and it looks like it's parted or something has moved it aside, and you can see the interior with your lights to some degree.
Does it look like it was opened from the outside or the inside?
Go ahead and make me a reason security test.
Okay. This is where I fail.
It's going to be difficulty
10
2
plus
because of the
security. All right.
darkness.
I
Unless
gotta
you're
get
getting
under
right up close to it. As in, physically stepping aboard onto this ship to get to that kind of opening.
I'll take the difficulty. I'll get close. Yeah, I'll take the difficulty. It's a 14, and I got an 8 and a 20, unfortunately.
8 and a 20.
So, but I get
So
two
if you're stepping up to near the
Yeah.
opening, it's difficulty
Yeah.
1. Because your light
I
is a lot more
said-
concentrated.
Yeah, I guess I would just keep getting closer until I could see it, I suppose.
Okay, as you step up on there, you're trying to find somewhere to put your foot in this plating, but the problem
Right.
is that every time you step, it crumbles beneath you, and you're not being burned, and your EV suit is fine, but you can
Right.
feel the heat. It's kind of like if you've ever held like a heat-proof mat or something that's heat dissipating over something very hot and place your hand on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't burn, but you can tell that if you were to remove it, it would be bad news. That's
Gotcha.
the feeling that you're getting. So you don't suffer any damage, but you are now kind of stumbling forward towards this entrance. And instead of stopping, this is what your complication is. Instead of stopping where
Perfect.
you'd like to, you find yourself stumbling forward until you're almost kind of like half against it with an ankle through the outer hull. It looks like that this has been opened from both the outside and inside. You can see recent marks on the side where it looks like something has pried it open from the outside. But the way that it's slightly impacted forward as well tells you that something exited. In which order, it's hard to tell. But what you do see now that you're here, kind of up against the opening with the light shining through, is inside the ship. There is what appear to be like large chambers, or perhaps you would recognize them better as like larvae pods that are cracked and open and empty. There is some kind of residual gel or liquid that is sprayed across the floor.
Gross.
But that's not even the thing that catches your eye the most. It's almost like they're the background, and as you come to focus on the thing closest to you, there is an EV suit. Somebody laying on their side. You can see the front of the helmet has been smashed in. You can see that the power points on the suit have been damaged.
Hand up to show everyone to stop. We got a body.
I'm immediately I'm going up to him.
I'm getting ready to catch him
moving forward.
because I expect him to fall forward because the ground keeps giving away.
Yeah. As you get up on the hull, you suffer the same thing. It's not like you're like sinking through your knees. It's not like trying to run through deep snow, but it's like you go down to your ankle as stuff crumbles away, and then you find yourself stepping in those strange fleshy organs that make up the interior of the ship. But you make it to Siltec, and you too can see the EV suit laid on the side, obscuring the face of what you're sure is the Vulcan here. And as you look further in, you too see these what look to be lava pods, and the strange gel liquid substance that, with your medical knowledge, you could only assume is some kind of embryonic gel.
It's like standing
Whether-
on a tongue.
Whether this ship, this is some kind of was keeping something hibernated or birthed something recently. Both of those you think could be reasonable to think, judging by the fact this vessel was living at one point. But as you take a look, you spot further down by one of these pods, partly obscured by the same strange fleshy wall structure inside here. It's very odd. It almost resembles like a sleeping pod bay in a starship, but instead of beds, you have these pods, these large larvae pods which are cracked and broken. You just catch the foot of another EV suit, with the rest of the body obscured, laying out of sight. But definitely there are probably some answers to be found inside here.
All right. Then I'll just keep testing the ground to make sure it's safe, like very carefully, and just inching in a little bit at a time and waving everyone on with us, I guess.
As you inch in, once you step inside that opening, you're no longer standing on the same substance the hull is made of. This is kind of squishier, slightly fleshier.
Great.
I'm trying to think of a comparison, but if you've ever touched like cold meat or like a cold steak while it's raw, that kind of it's got like a firmness to it, but you sink
Sure.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Except
It's like that soft palate in the back of your neck. It's like there's a
Yeah.
firmness there, but it gives a little bit. Yeah, okay.
it's a little bit fleshy and a bit gross, and it's like everything is kind of it's pitch black still, apart from your lights. Everything is this dark. You can't even tell what true color this could be. You'd imagine it itself is black in color, and it's sticky. You can hear the kind of as you walk across the floor as you're stepping in this strange embryonic fluid. It's really hot in here. The actual, if you touch any of the kind of fleshier walls and stuff like that, they're not burning hot like the hull, but obviously it's like a little oven in here as the outer hull exudes all this heat. What
Like
are
being in a
you? Is
stomach.
anybody not? Yeah, is anyone not going in? You're all going in. Okay. What do you all do once you get in here? Because Siltek and Malco, you're the first ones in, and you have to step around the body of this Vulcan or what you assume is a Vulcan in the EV. So it's got the kind of patch on the side that marks it as the Vulcan Expeditionary Group.
I'll flip him over.
You roll him over onto his front. His face has gone pale. Malco, you can probably tell, same blunt force trauma, but again, like the other Vulcans, it wasn't enough to kill this Vulcan. This person died of exposure, of asphyxiation because of the atmosphere. Probably even worse here because it's so concentrated as it evaporates from the ship. And you can see the helmet smashed in again. The power points on the suit look like that they have been damaged. As you know, the creatures that you came across seems to have drained power, or at least that's what you assumed. So this makes sense. This is entirely fitting with the other Vulcans that you've seen.
Rose probably right behind Siltek and Malco, and I think she's, after being on there a few seconds, is going to turn to the doctor and say, hey doc, you got anything for nausea? Because I feel like I'm going to lose my lunch here.
And he'll kind of think for a moment. I would kind of imagine he had like a small, maybe a bag of some sort, or like a pouch that he would bring with him, and he's like, yeah, and he'll kind of dig through to see if he does. I would imagine he does.
I'll happy to say that you have like basic medical stuff. That could easily be one of them.
Yeah.
Did you want to administer that?
I'll look at Ro and just, do you need it? Are you gonna?
I mean, it was more of an expression of how gross the situation is, but I mean, I might actually legitimately need something. This is disgusting.
Sure. And like at that point, he's got like I would imagine like a small little administrative tool, just like he's holding it, just like, okay, and then he'll go up and administer.
I like to think that somewhere on the EV suit there's perhaps like a little airlock that you can attach this to administer via hypospray this substance, and Ro, within a few seconds you start to feel slightly less nauseous. This would be a good point to point out. We've hit our first wild magic surge.
Oh. Oh dear.
So
We get free bread. Free bread. Come on, bread.
I like bread.
Yeah, everyone likes bread.
Ro, Raven, why don't you go ahead and roll D10,000 for me?
Oh dear.
Give me bread.
10,000?
D10,000, yeah.
That's not it. Or is, oh, I think it did actually roll 10,000. Just make sure I typed that in right.
It should come up with a D in front of the 10,000 when you do it. So it's slash that goes that way.
Oh,
D-I-E.
that's, I missed the
cool.
D.
So
I'm
that
not doing it
is
right
241. We'll get that looked up and I'll let you know what it is.
Sourdough.
Thank you so much, Chaos
Sourdough.
Chorus. for the wild magic surge. We do love them over here. But you do start to
Maybe a
feel
nice
better.
pickle.
You do. Oh, I have been told that we should re-roll, which means that whatever it is either a
It
little
was
bit.
bread. They took our bread.
Not the
No,
sourdough.
6,364. So re-rolling normally means that it's something that's either super breaking or just doesn't work at all with what's happening. So 6,364. We'll see what that is. But you do start to feel better, Ro. It helps the
Yay.
physical nausea. It does nothing for the fact that just looking at the room, it's almost like you would feel sick, but now you don't. Your body doesn't know how else to kind of respond to this now that you've stopped it having the nausea. It's just really gross. What is everyone else doing as you step in? Malco, you can see this Vulcan has died in exactly the same way as the last ones have. Actually, Trishan, can you go ahead and roll for me a presence
Okay.
and command here.
Okay.
Let me see if you've got any talents that would apply. If your empath talents, what does your empath talent do? Does it say?
Yeah. So I can sense the emotions of most living beings nearby and can communicate telepathically with other empaths and telepaths, as well as those with whom I am extremely familiar. I cannot choose to not sense the emotions of those nearby.
Okay. So go ahead and just roll me that presence and command
Yep.
test. Difficulty 1.
Okay. Send command. Okay, 2 successes.
2 successes. Okay, so you gain a point of momentum. So you've got 2 points of momentum in the pool now, friends. Don't forget you can use that to ask questions on tests, to buy extra dice. As you step in here, that presence, it's there. That active presence. You can feel it very strongly here.
Okay. Do I get? Is it just a directional thing? Do I sense where it might be, or is it just here?
It's here in this, if you could call it a room, it's here. What you begin to sense now you're in this proximity, it's strange. There is a sense of calm, but a sense of panic at the same time. A sense of, maybe not quite panic, unknowing. A sense of curiosity, but unknowing. Like the sense of confusion when you know there's something you want to do, but you don't know how to do it. Probably the same sense that you're getting from some of your crew members, perhaps. The sense that there is something to be done, but just what? How? And this feeling is, it's not overwhelming. I imagine you're actually quite a skilled empath. But it's there, and it's more present than you've ever felt it.
Whatever this thing is, I don't think it's dead. And it's a little confused. And I'm right there with it, honestly.
You can
Doesn't
feel
seem
it.
hostile right now.
You can
Is that
feel it
right?
here. You can't get a sense of whether it's hostile or not hostile, and that could be for many reasons, but it's odd. The feelings themselves aren't like feelings that you're used to from other people, other humanoid creatures, for example, that share similar traits in what happy means or what sad means. This is just, it's like trying to put words to something that you can't describe, but you're finding the nearest. Confusion is the nearest thing that you can think that this feels like. And you can feel it even stronger the further into that you go. Because you've got the other, you can see the boot of the EV suit towards the back of the ship behind like a fleshy wall outcropping. And you can feel it strongly there as well.
That's where I'm headed.
Are
Gotta
you
move towards
saying
that
any of this
feeling.
out loud, by the way?
Yeah.
Are you keeping this? Okay. Question, Lieutenant, before you go on ahead. Does this thing have intent? Do you think it has thoughts?
I don't know.
Because if it has thoughts and it's terraforming this planet and giving birth, then aren't we up against the prime directive here?
Possibly.
Okay. I'll try not to shoot anything.
I'd advise against that anyway, considering it seems to be pretty flammable.
Point taken.
Yeah. Are you sure this
So-
thing's not? It looks pretty dead.
I'm
Okay.
sensing something.
As you make your way towards the back, Tristan, you see just past that fleshy wall, the boot is attached to the rest of a Vulcan. Same condition, EV suit smashed, power drained, dead from asphyxiation. And just further along, slumped up against the wall, the last member of the expeditionary group. Down the end of this corridor, there's more of these kind of strange larvae pods, empty still. And as you get down there, I'm going to spend some threat. As you kind of get up towards the Vulcans, you watch as there's a twitch in one of them, in the neck, as disjointedly the figure in the EV suit gets up. Unsteady in that moment, but still quick. Vulcans are, they generally take very good care of themselves, and like your captain, can be very athletic. They are much stronger than humans, especially in Earth-like gravity environments. And there are these disjointed movements, as if it doesn't quite know how to move anymore, not like anything's broken. And it thrusts its hand towards your face. And it's going to go in and it's going to make an attack.
No.
So we are going to be in combat. So in combat with Star Trek Adventures, you don't have to roll for initiative. We simply pass it back between my NPCs and your characters, back and forth, each taking a turn. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I am going to spend some threat. So melee attacks are contested rolls, so you do get to roll against me to try and defend. But I am going to go ahead and spend a whole bunch of threat here. So I'm going to get 18, 17, 16, 50. I'm going to go down to there. 15? Yes. To roll 2 extra dice. And if you wish to spend any momentum or give me threat to roll any dice, you can do so. Would you like to do that?
So when sort of contesting roll for attacks and things like that, do the same things apply where we can use things like focuses and
Yeah, absolutely.
talents and stuff like that too? Okay.
Yeah.
Although I guess I don't know what would be rolling under if we used focuses.
So this is going to be it's going to be fitness plus security is what you're going to be rolling with to defend.
Okay.
You've got 2 points of momentum in the pool, so it's enough to buy 1 point of dice, 1 extra dice, and you could spend the second momentum at a point of threat to roll 2 extra dice if you wish. The difficulty to attack is 1, so we're both looking to get at least 1 success, and then it's whoever gets more successes.
Okay. I will.
So
I'm going to use the momentum.
So for 1 dice.
Again, for 1 die, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be rolling 3d20. So let me roll my 4 here. Oh, that is 2 successes there. Do we have any focuses? I don't have any focuses there, but that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successes. It is still technically possible for you to beat me. If you roll very, very well.
Okay.
Am I close enough to throw myself in between them?
You are not, unfortunately.
Can I use my roller disco focus to do some snazzy maneuvers to try and avoid this?
You can. I'll let that focus apply.
Cool.
You're kind of used to people like coming at you at the hollow disco. Imagine you program them so that it's not perfect. It feels real. People have accidents and fall over, and
it's more fun. Okay.
Go ahead, roll those 3d20.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Is that 5?
That's 5. Yep.
That's 5. Unfortunately, I'm the active character, and therefore I break the tie. But very close. It comes towards you, and it's going to, and you watch as its hand smashes straight towards the shield of your EV suit. So let's go ahead and roll for some damage.
Is Tristan wearing red? Just out of curiosity.
I am.
Oh, those dice didn't that show up? No, I rolled them too far off the thing. Okay, let's try that again. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 5. And that is enough to cause what we call an injury. So the way that you take damage is you have stress. You can take so much stress, and when you roll for damage, if you do 5 in one go after any resistance, then you take what's called an injury, and that's pretty bad. An injury is enough to put you out of the game. However, in this case, you yourself are not injured. The blunt force, like it knocks, it hurts, but as you expect this thing to then, you feel the visor smash. You feel the, I imagine it's not glass, but it's almost like safety glass, plexiglass stuff. It shatters and crumbles away, and for the first time, you instinctively take a breath as you step back, and you can taste the silicate in the air.
Fuck. Sorry.
It's not nice. It's thick. You can feel it in your lungs. You're immediately starting to cough, as it's even thicker here than it was back at base camp. And horrifyingly, even more, I'm going to spend 2 more threat to take a swift task. As the other hand reaches forward and grabs for your face.
Okay.
So this is going to be it's going to be reason plus command. It's going to be opposed again. It's difficulty 1, but I'm going to spend some of that momentum, some of that threat from earlier complications to increase the difficulty here of your test to 2, as you are stunned and shocked by breathing in this sudden exposure to the silicate air.
Yep. Okay, so this is
reason plus command.
Command. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not too bad for me, but
I'm not gonna buy any dice with threat.
okay.
So let's see what happens. That is gonna be, I do have a focus in this, so that is 3 successes. If you want to go ahead and roll your test there for me.
Yep. Both success, but no, I don't think I've got any focuses.
Okay, so unfortunately I beat you on that test there. I do get a point of threat back though, because I got 1 more success than I needed. Okay, as it makes contact with your skin, it touches across the forehead and chin in a horrible grab. And all of you can see this now, as Tristan has stepped back into the light, and all you can see is this EV suit. You can see the glass falling from the front of his face, and you can hear the coughing as he's now breathing in the atmosphere. However, let me just move over this way.
Is this thing still coming for him?
It's grabbed onto his face. It's attached, like it's gripping the side of its face, side of Tristan's face. And Tristan, you feel not quite yet. You feel
Okay.
something as it grabs you. In that moment where its fingers touch your face, your mind is sent spiraling into the feeling of a vast consciousness. Something so much bigger than this one thing. Everything feels connected. This thing, whatever it is that inhabits the shell that was the Vulcan, it's connected to other things, and you can feel it almost instinctively. This connection, this family is the word that you might use in place of another. There is curiosity. There is upset. You feel like something is gaining understanding. As the hand on your face, which was gripping so tightly, relaxes slightly. As you start to feel confusion. Understanding, but confusion. And curiosity. The want, not just from this one thing which you can sense, but this vast consciousness that you understand to be present. It's curious. But you don't feel any hatred. There's none of these normal emotions. It's very difficult to put words to them, but this thing gripping the side of your face isn't clawing at you. It's now just holding your face. It stopped moving. It hasn't come towards you. The other hand hasn't come up to tear at another piece of your suit as you would have expected. And I'm going to be really mean, and I'm going to pay 2 threat to hold the initiative. So you can do this as well on your turns. Instead of passing it back over to the opposite side, so me, you can spend momentum to hold the initiative to have one of your own characters take the next turn, which is what I'm going to do here. Who is closest to the the entrance where you came in? Who was the last one to come in?
Probably me.
Illyria, as you're standing there, you see this happen in the corridor ahead of you. You feel something grab at your knee and the EV suit. As the Vulcan, lying on the floor that had been turned over by Siltech, is grabbing onto your suit, pulling itself up, almost pulling you over in the process. As a hand comes towards you, towards the front of your EV suit, and we're going to make another opposed test.
Okay.
I'm not going to spend any threat here, so it's just going to be fitness and security at difficulty 1, and I've got 2 successes there. So you're going to be rolling the same. Do you want to buy any dice with momentum?
Oh, I'm sorry, you said it was fitness and security?
Yep. Did you want to buy any extra dice? You've got 2 momentum in the pool right now.
And 1 gets me an extra die?
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay, go ahead. You're rolling 3 d20.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Well, I was supposed to beat a 12.
So you've only got 1 success there.
Oh, okay.
So I gain a point of threat. And it unfortunately does successfully land a hit on yourself. And that is going to be 1, 2, 3, it's 4 points of stress. So not enough to cause an injury. It goes for the front of your visor, and you see it flex inwards, and perhaps a little hairline splinter, but it doesn't crack. You're still breathing fresh oxygen. But go ahead, you need to mark down those 4 stress on your character sheet.
Okay.
And at this point, I can't hold the initiative again until I give somebody a turn. So it's over to all of you. Who would like to act next?
Me. Is this
Okay.
thing still? Is this thing still touching Tristan?
It is. You've noticed that
Okay.
it's
Oh,
not
it's muted.
continuing forward. It hasn't even swung up the other arm. It's now just stood there holding the side of his face as Tristan... I imagine you're coughing, but depending on how much other people's emotions affect you, you've been thrown into this a lot. And I imagine that there is almost a sense of stillness to you here. The same as the Vulcan itself grabbing the side of the face. There's no more aggression in the stance of the Vulcan. It's just standing there, holding Tristan's face, as I imagine you involuntarily are coughing and breathing in this atmosphere.
Does it look like a Vulcan mind meld? Like, would we know what that looks like?
I don't know, Siltek. Would you know what that looks like?
I have no idea. I mean, we have a Vulcan captain, but I can't imagine it's something you'd see very often. Like, you'd hear about it, but you might not know exactly where their fingers go, you know?
Would Siltek have ever seen a Vulcan mind meld or known somebody
Out on
who could
my
have told
ranch
him
in
about it?
Montana?
During the academy, did you train with any
maybe.
Vulcans that you knew? If you can
It's
give me a good
possible.
backstory, I imagine that you have heard of a Vulcan
Yeah.
mind meld.
Yeah.
Perhaps
And-
not from a Vulcan, but perhaps you have heard stories like any kind of college campusy style camp.
Sure.
You know, you've had people. You've seen both sides of it. People interested and people who will make fun of it because it's odd and it's
Sure.
weird and they don't understand. But you know that Vulcan mind melds involve touching contact with skin, often the
Right.
face. But like
Right.
exactly what they look like, you don't know. You've never seen one.
Okay, well then, oh man, I don't know what's going on. So I'm taking off my helmet, and I am getting behind Tristan and ready to swap him out. Because if anyone has a chance of breathing this, it's me with my fake lungs. I got a better chance than he does. So I'm gonna get ready to swap out helmets as soon as I figure out what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to say then, because of your artificial lungs, you gain a point of resistance to any damage that you take from the atmosphere.
Okay.
You remove your helmet and get behind Tristan. And for the first time, you also breathe this silicate air. It feels thick and heavy.
Gross.
Even with your artificial lungs, it almost... If your lungs could ache, that's what it's like. It's not so much your lungs, but you can already feel... If you've ever been anywhere with like low oxygen at like high altitude, that kind of slight breathlessness as you're not getting the oxygen to your blood. You can probably withstand it a little bit longer than your friends here, but not for too much longer than they would be able to. Maybe a minute or two at most, where it's so dense here.
Sure.
You have there's only one momentum that you have in the pool, so you're not going to be able to hold the initiative here. So it is going to pass back over to me as the third Vulcan that was lying here, the last of the expeditionary crew, gets up. Again, the movements are disjointed. Like, it reminds you of like a baby deer trying to walk before it's figured out which legs to put in front of the other, as it stumbles and kind of awkwardly tries to rest against the wall of the ship and almost pulling itself along like it doesn't know how to use its body. It passes towards you, Siltek, and it's going to attempt to make a grab at your face as you now have no helmet on. So this is going to be a fitness and security test. I'm not going to buy any dice, so it's difficulty 1. That is... where am I? Fitness and security. It misses, and it has a complication. So I'm not even going to make you roll there, because you're still going to win, because I've completely failed. It goes towards your face. Tell me what happens that is that complication as to why it misses, as its fingers go to brush against the side of your temples. Siltek?
I'm sorry. I
That's all right.
I didn't realize it was coming for me. I apologize.
Yeah.
I am
No worries.
going to. I'm just going to knock it out of the way. Just instinctively slap the hand out of the way.
You slap the hand out of the way, and you expect, you've trained with Vulcans, they're physically strong. You expect the hand to move, but what you don't expect is the way that it stumbles, crashes against the side of the wall as if it doesn't know how to balance on the two legs it has, slips down to the floor, and not quite flails about, but as if it doesn't quite know how to stabilize itself. It's very odd to see a humanoid creature. It's like watching a baby try to walk for the first time, and it doesn't know how to move its limbs.
Weird.
Which is odd.
Okay.
These are Vulcans, adult Vulcans, presumably. But that is its complication. It is now knocked down to the floor.
Okay. All right. I'm pulling Tristan back at this point. I'm pulling him
won't
back.
be able to yet. You'll be able to on your turn.
Gotcha.
So it's back over to all of you. So anyone who hasn't acted, you can act now in the initiative if you wish.
Yeah, Ro's gonna do a thing. So seeing that we are down an environmental suit helmet, the counselor's presumably injured. Our chief engineer is potentially has a damaged suit. Ro's gonna tap her communicator and go, Ro to initiative, emergency beam out, 5 crew. Commander Odie directly to sickbay, and 3 Vulcans transport directly to the brig.
Shit. Sorry.
Okay. You call this out to the ship.
Yeah.
And you get a reply. We're going to attempt to beam you up, Chief Petty Officer. Bear with us. There is something happening in the atmosphere.
And Ro also recommend a containment field on the brig.
Okay.
There we go. Yes. About to say, belay that.
And you go ahead and call that up. That will be a whole action for the ship to attempt to do, because another character has to do that. But I'll say that's kind of a minor action to kind of quickly communicate that. Is there anything else that you would like to do?
Oh, very
Yeah.
much so. Draw phaser and try to stun the Vulcan holding on to the counselor.
Okay, so you can go ahead and make that attack. So it's going to be a ranged attack. Oh, oh, my thing has frozen here. So to do this is going to be, let me just double check. Ranged attacks use control and security here.
Control and security. Okay. And I do have a focus in hand phasers. I forget
This
what
will
focus
absolutely
gives you.
apply. So that means that if you roll under your discipline, so say what's your security discipline?
It's 3.
Great. If you roll a 3 or under, you'll get 2 successes, just like you rolled a 1.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so I rolled 2d20, right?
Start with 2d20. Yep, you have got a point of momentum in the pool if you want to buy an extra dice. This isn't opposed because it's at range.
I think I'm going to go with just the 2d20.
Okay. Difficulty 2.
So there's a 4. Not sure why I didn't roll 2. I must have hit the wrong button. Okay. So the second one, 19.
19.
So the target number is 12.
12. Okay, so you're looking. It's difficulty 2 for a range test. So unfortunately, there's only 1 success there. So you let off, but you haven't rolled a complication, so that's good. You haven't accidentally stunned anybody else, but you let the shot. You let the shot off, but I imagine that you're standing somewhere between kind of where Siltek was, probably with Malco nearby, and not too far from Illyria. And I imagine as Illyria tries to move, as this Vulcan tries to, smash against the helmet, it knocks you a bit and knocks you off balance, and you just manage to barely miss the Vulcan, nearly hitting Siltek in the back there. Siltek, you see the stun beam go just across the flash of your face.
Right.
All of my NPCs have acted now, so it is down to all of you. What do you wish to do? Anyone who hasn't acted yet?
Is
Do I
this
damage?
thing still coming for me?
Yes. It's still
Okay.
awkwardly, as you kind of step back away from it, it's still awkwardly coming towards the top of your EV suit.
Okay. I would like... I don't think that she has enough time to think about drawing her little phaser. Can I, like, shove it back?
You absolutely can. So it's going to be a melee attack. And I do apologize. I was using the wrong attribute earlier for that. Pardon me. Should have been daring plus security. I got it mixed up with another test roll on here. So we'll switch over to that. So it's going to be daring plus security, and it's difficult 1, and it is a pose.
Okay.
So I do get to kind of fight back. Do you want to spend a point of momentum to buy some extra dice?
Okay, I have a question before I answer your question. So can my values come into play in this?
So your values, they can. You can, if you've got some determination to spend, which I think
Okay.
you do.
I
So
do.
you can use your values here to make something happen. So to introduce an important narrative element to the scene that perhaps could also lower the difficulty for you or put something in your favor, or you can use it for to get an automatic a dice that's already rolled a 1, so 2 automatic successes, or you can use it after you've rolled to re-roll.
Okay, that's a lot of things. I'm not really sure what I want to do. I know what value I want to use, and it's that technology is more reliable than people. She would always be more wary around anything humanoid-esque.
Okay.
In general, is that fair?
That would work if I would say you'd have to be doing something with technology in relation to this, that you're choosing to be more reliable. So if it's that
Okay.
you're drawing your phaser and like pushing it away by kind of like smashing it against the Vulcan, so rather like, using it that way, or grabbing for a piece of technology in order to help you do that, I would say yes. Because that value, I think, is about the choice of I choose technology over people. This is what I prefer.
Yeah.
So,
okay, then I probably will have her use her phaser to push it. Not actually like shoot it, but kill.
Yeah,
So then what do I do?
maybe it's even just you draw it instinctively as it's a comfort. It's something tech that you can rely on, and you kind of shove past it with the phaser as that backup. I'd let you use it then if that's what you want to do. Sure.
That's perfect.
So what
then-
effect would you like here? Would you like to have a dice that's rolled 2 successes already?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Because then
So
I
you've
can't
got
lose.
Yeah, you've got 2 successes. So then you still have to go ahead and roll that 2d20 for me. So somehow I'll have to beat whatever you roll. So go ahead and do that and compare it against your daring and security.
Oh, okay. Sweet. So I think that it was an 11 that I had to beat. It was daring.
Okay.
And yes, 11.
So you are looking at 5 successes, which I don't think I can actually beat, but I'll give it a go. No, that is 1 success. So it's 5 successes. I also succeeded, but you win, and you also gain 4 points of momentum for the pool.
Yes.
So you've got 5 points of momentum in total now. And the last 2 people we have left are Trishan and Malco. Who would like to go next? And Illyria, you do. You pull the phaser out for that kind of comfort, and with both hands shove the Vulcan out of the way. And I imagine like training your phaser on it. As you can step out kind of back towards the exit as it goes crashing into the wall and the pods the other side of you, and kind of fumbles around on the floor, not too sure how to stand up. So Malco and Trishan, who would like to go next?
I'll go. So at this point, seeing Lyra push off the one that was on her, he's gonna take out his phaser and shoot it.
Okay. Are you going for a lethal shot or a stun shot?
Stun.
Stun. Okay. Go ahead. So that's going to be control plus security, and it's difficulty 2.
Okay.
Which one are you going for?
The one that's on Alira, or the one that was
On
just
Alira.
pushed off of.
Okay.
And I'm going to use 1 momentum to buy an extra dice.
Okay then. So you're rolling 3d20, and it's a difficulty 2, and it's not opposed because it's a ranged attack.
Cool. Oh wow. Okay. So my target was 11.
Nice. So 3 successes there. So you got 2 with the 1 and 1 with the 10, which is 1 more than you needed. So you gain that point of momentum back. So you're back to 5 in the pool, and you are successful. So on your character sheet, next to your weapon, there'll be a little Starfleet Delta badge that'll have a number in it, and that is how many d6 I need you to roll.
Okay, so that would be 4. It looks like.
Okay, so 1's a 1, so that's 1. The 2's are a 2, so that's 3. 5's also count as 1, and 4's are blank. So you've done 4 points of stress to this Vulcan, and let me have a look. Okay, so it's got some resistance. That stun doesn't do as much as you hoped that it would. Like, it hit it pretty hard, but it's not down. And what strikes you as even more odd is that you know these Vulcans to be absolutely, categorically, medically dead. It still kind of knocks it back, and it has a moment, but it doesn't do what you thought it would. And the fact this thing is dead comes to mind. Like, there is absolutely no way this Vulcan is still alive. And we finally move over to Tristan. As you are here, feeling this vast consciousness, you can still see. It's not like that's completely gone, but you're now staring into the dead eyes of the Vulcan in front of you. His mouth hangs limply open. You can see the jaw trying to move and the tongue flexing, but there's no sound. Occasionally you just get a like something from a zombie movie that you perhaps seen from the 21st century, but it's like there's no control of the muscles there, as this consciousness just continues to try, and you can feel these emotions. What would you like to do?
Okay, I don't think I'm in any position to really be fighting back properly, so I'm going to try something a little different if I can. I'm going to attempt to communicate with it telepathically and use my talent diffuse the tension.
Okay.
And basically I just want to try and reach out to it telepathically and just communicate that what it's doing is killing us and ask it to stop.
Do you communicate why it's killing you, or just...
Yeah, I'll communicate that we cannot breathe.
Okay.
Without these.
Go ahead and just make me a presence and command test.
Okay.
And treat your... we're going to treat the trait that you have, because you are Betazoid. I'm going to lower the difficulty here to 1.
Okay. Do I roll an extra... do I roll an extra d20? So diffuse the tension, bonus d20 to persuade someone not to use violence?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're rolling 3d20 here.
Okay. That is a success. That's 1 success.
That is a success, and there are no complications there. So as you put across, you are killing us. We can't breathe. It's difficult. It's like it's trying to speak to you, but you can't understand the language. It's, normally you have universal translators, but you don't have one in your mind. As you put this out, and you see the head of the Vulcan tilt as it grips slightly tighter, not painfully, but as if there's a concentration, as if it's leaning into your thoughts. And you watch as it lazily pulls a hand up to the face of the Vulcan and touches it, like you can feel it across the mouth, and brings its hand down to about where the lungs would be, and back up. As if it's trying to figure something out. And you watch as it withdraws the hand slightly, places it against the head again, only just a touch, as you can't make out what it's saying. If you could speak its language, it feels like it's trying to have a conversation with you, but it's like it's confusion, as if it kind of understands, but it doesn't understand why. Why is it killing you? Why can't you breathe? It's the kind of feeling that you get almost, that it's barely understood what you've said to it, but it doesn't understand why. And just it keeps going to the face with the hand, as if it's trying to touch a visor that's not there. And back down to the chest. Back up. But you do notice the Vulcan that's over on the floor, that was knocked over by Illyria, and Ro, you see this as well. As it's getting back up and flailing towards you, it almost stops. It's still kind of standing there unsteady, but it's now just looking at you. And it too puts a hand to its face and touches the skin of the Vulcan. And Illyria, it stumbles towards you for a moment, not throwing a fist towards you like it did before, but kind of clumsily runs its fingers down the front of your visor. It catches on that little crack in the glass as it runs the finger kind of haphazardly over it, and then back to its own face. Siltek, the one that you've knocked to the floor as well, is doing the same action as it stretches towards you, up towards your visor, and it can't reach you because it's still there.
Right.
But studies your face and then brings the hand back.
Well, I've taken off my helmet, so it's not hurting Tristan, and Tristan seems to be trying to communicate with it. Is that accurate?
It's hard to tell. Tristan, tell us, how does Tristan look right now? Because I imagine there is almost a state of, stillness amongst everybody else moving. But what is happening right now?
I don't think he'd be moving much at all outside of the sort of struggling to breathe. Probably quite calm, just concentrating and focusing on all of this that's going on. He would have a very hard time communicating what's happening with anyone else right now, but outside of the difficulty breathing, not like trying to move away, not trying to escape from this thing.
I'm going to say that you are all now out of combat initiative as such, because there is no longer what appears to be an apparent threat, as these Vulcans don't appear to be approaching you any further. But Tristan, there is a great sense of there is something to be said, but there is a language barrier here. It doesn't quite understand you. It understands the premise in the same way that putting a hand to your chest says me and pointing at you says you. And you can clearly see that this consciousness is having a moment of thought. It's trying to connect what you imagine is the dead Vulcan as it touches the face to something with the suit. based on what you've said. But you can't understand what it's saying back. You can't understand other than it's confused, but it's curious. It's the curiosity, like it wants more, but it can't get it because of this barrier.
Okay.
And I'm also going to make this roll. This is going to be for both Tristan and Siltek because you've got your helmets off. It's going to be 3 points of stress to each of you as you're breathing in the atmosphere. Siltek, you do get some resistance to this. Like I said, I think it was 1 point of resistance, so you only take 2. But Tristan,
Okay.
you'll take the full 3. As
Well,
your
we're
suit.
counting. Sorry, when we're counting stress, are we counting the open boxes that we're knocking off of?
Let me double check how it appears on this PDF. Yeah, so it'll be in the open boxes. The ones crossed off you don't have access to, so it's just the open boxes that are your stress track.
Perfect. Thank you.
When I
It
took
is-
that 5
yeah.
stress earlier, I know I took an injury, but it was to the suit. Do I still take that as stress?
You still take this as stress, yeah. So
Okay,
you'll
then
still
I-
take the 5
I-
stress,
I
and then you'll
am-
take an additional 3.
Yeah, I'm at full stress.
You're at full stress. Okay, so that means that first injury isn't traditionally how you would take an injury. It's almost kind of like a special rule of the character that's how they deal in injury. But at this point, Tristan, as the Vulcan's hand begins to drop away, you're coughing. You're out of that state now. You are vitally aware. You've got all of these residual feelings, but that you can't breathe. And all of you watch as Tristan collapses there. Siltek, you understand what's happened, because even for your lungs, it's starting to get a bit much.
Right. Right.
And Ro, it's at this moment that it says, Commander, hold positions. And you all feel the beam up as you hear transporter lock, and you feel yourself phase out. When you come around, except for you, Tristan, who you are still unconscious when you are beamed aboard back the USS Initiative. You find yourself in the brig of the ship. Quarantine field has been set up. You recognize it from the slightly shimmering barrier towards
Good.
the exit. The air is breathable here, Siltek, and it takes you a few minutes of just standing and breathing for you to kind of feel like your lungs are clear again. Anyone in an EV suit can remove it if they wish. You are now back in breathable atmosphere. Tristan is there in the center of all of you, unconscious on the floor, still in the EV suits, and you can see this slight blue lips as he's been starved of oxygen to some degree. And you can see just outside of here, there is a medical team, and your captain is there. And she looks at you, looks at the medical team. Do you believe that you are contaminated? You
Yes,
can see
Captain.
her hand is hovering over this button, the button that would release the force field, as she looks at Tristan, looks at the medical team, and you can see her weighing up the options.
Do not release that field, Captain. Keep us in here.
Alira's gonna give you a really almost angry look as she looks at like Tristan and then looks at the captain and the medical team. And then she's gonna look at Malco and see if like Malco's gonna do anything.
Ro's a little. That's probably Ro is angry, just straight up angry, and she's probably gonna say, "We have containment fields and sickbay. Why is Tristan in the brig with the rest of us?"
We were not aware that he was unconscious. We had difficulty getting transporter lock for after your message. Something in the atmosphere kicked up again. Geomagnetic anomalies.
I said transport him directly to sickbay. Who's the crewman on the transporters? I am going to give them a piece of my mind later.
I am not currently aware, Chief Petiotta. However, we have had issues. Did you not receive our previous communications? Preparing you for the transporter signal.
communicators have been spotty.
And you watch the captain studies all of you for a moment. Lieutenant Commander Sozin, do you believe that you are contagious in any form?
And he's gonna think for just a second and think about what he's learned about this entity, this thing, and he's gonna look at the captain and say, if we are, then it's my responsibility. I need my team.
There is a curt nod as she hits the controls and the containment field goes down, and your medical team that you know very well, Malco, rush in to tend to Tristan. It's not that Tristan is not breathing, it's just Tristan is still unconscious, and you see they start putting masks on, they start administering hypo sprays, they start checking. You can see there's a bruise along the end of the jawline where the Vulcan first gripped, and he is taken to sickbay.
I'm
go ahead.
scanning though for anything. I'm scanning for any trace that we got picked up down there. I'm scanning for it here right now. Because if anything is in this atmosphere, we could be in trouble. This thing eats energy.
You do know that on your EV suits, especially yours and Illyria's, you still have some of that substance. There's tiny little wafts of this, but not enough that anyone appears to be alarmed.
Okay.
The captain looks at across all of you, and in that same kind of straight up, not quite emotionless, you spot the look of relief on her face. Just looks at you and says, dispose of your environment suits, tend to yourself however you need, and be in my ready room in 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad you are safe. That is the human expression, is it not? She looks over, probably at either Illyria or Ro or Malco.
I think that's pretty much the universal expression, Captain, yeah.
I will see you in my ready room, 10 minutes. And she turns and walks out, and you can't help but think that perhaps you detect upset in her voice. You know your captain. She is as Vulcans get, but every now and then she appears to have understanding of emotion. She appears to see value in perhaps things that she doesn't understand about the emotional state of others, and she leaves the room.
Sure. A whole bunch of people just
died.
That's sensible. I mean, yeah.
You can easily dispose of your EV suits, which removes any further trace. You have got, maybe by the time you've done that, 5 minutes or so. How do you spend this 5 minutes? What do you do on the way to the ready room?
Writing up a security report. Everything I can think of that was a threat and that caused damage, I'm putting down in the report.
I imagine that you've got a pad and you're doing this on the way to the room. That very studious walk. I was trying to do the walk and talk, but it's like the walk and write.
Yes, exactly.
As you notice, the ship itself, once you get out into the corridors, appears to be at yellow alert.
That's smart.
Ro, how do you spend this precious 5 minutes that you have between disposing of your EV suit and having to be in the ready room?
Ro's grabbing a pad and looking up who's the transporter specialist or transporter chief on duty.
Okay, then you tell me.
I'm gonna go talk to them later.
Who is the transporter specialist on duty? Who are they? What is their name?
Let's see. How about let's do Specialist Callahan.
Okay, Specialist Callahan. This is very easy information for you to look up. Specialist Callahan, I imagine that you know of this person. You might not be particularly close to them, but you're aware of them. Perhaps even Illyria might be aware of them as well, because there's some crossover between engineering and operations, obviously, in those areas. But you note down the name, and you note down his rotation schedule for the next week. So that you may perhaps go and have a conversation with him when the situation is dealt with, and you arrive at the captain's ready room. Illyria, what do you do in that 5 minutes between disposing of your EV suit and making your way to the ready room?
She is very deep in thought. She wants to ingrain everything that she remembers about the ship alien thing, because it was something that she had never seen before, therefore she doesn't understand it, therefore she needs to. But as she thinks about it, also she has little spurts of distraction, worrying about how Tristan is doing, because when Tristan fixed the power last episode in the ship, Alira started thinking about Tristan differently, as if they were of the same mind almost, because they understand the same things. And so she in a I think I might be your friend way is seriously concerned, but also still very focused on remembering everything she can remember about the ship and what it looks like and how she thinks it works.
So I imagine that perhaps you were doing a little bit of what Siltech is doing, that you have a pad and you're trying to write down what you can remember, maybe checking in with Medbay, but they can't really tell you anything. They just tell you that he is still unconscious. Malco, what do you do in this 5 minutes?
I am with Tristan the entire time, just making sure, going through the whole procedure, just making sure I'm doing whatever humanly possible to make sure that he will be okay.
It appears from all of the tests that you and your medical team run, he appears to be fine. He was oxygen starved from breathing in the atmosphere, but he should awaken once the oxygen levels in the blood balance out and they filter out any of the silica that has deposited within him, which is not a difficult thing to do for Starfleet with the medical technology you have available. But you are then very quickly reminded that you are due to be in the captain's ready room.
And he will just tell the rest of his team, make sure he's going to be okay, and save what you can of whatever was in his lungs. Just save
and they agree. You make your way to the captain's ready room, and you get there, and she's already in there. She's already waiting. She's stood, and if you've ever seen a nervous Vulcan, this is as close to it as you could describe, as she is not jittery, but she is pacing. It's that kind of slow, calm pacing of somebody in thought, which you don't see her do very often, but you have done the few times that things have perhaps got a little bit hairy, a little bit close to the bone. This is what she does. And as you enter, she stops, folds her arms gently kind of behind her back, resting them on the small of her back. And she doesn't even indicate for you to sit. And she crosses over, standing in front of you. Any normal person might lean back on the chair behind to rest on, but she doesn't. She stands pin straight. And that is where she asks for the report from all of you of what happened within the last kind of half an hour or so. But Tristan, when you awaken, there is a bright light over your head. You cannot help but cough as your lungs feel sore. I don't know if you've ever been around somewhere that's got like heavy cigarette smoke or a Vulcan machine or just something in the air, and after you come out of it, it's kind of, you can still kind of feel the effects. And you're coughing and spluttering and your vision's blurry, and suddenly as you sit up, you know, it kind of aches in your chest and somebody's grabbing hold of you, kind of holding you up as you try to cough. Someone's handing you something. You feel a sting in the side of your arm, and as the bleariness comes to, you realize that you are in the medical bay. But it's that first few seconds where kind of stuff is happening and there's people, and you can still feel that residual effect of this greater mind that was so desperate to communicate and yet couldn't speak the same language even in your mind.
If I have a chance, I'm gonna ask whoever's around me if everybody else is okay.
You pull over one of the medical, looks like an ensign here that's just kind of been asked to like keep watch and see what's going on. And he's nervous, and he's as far as I'm aware, Lieutenant Commander, everyone arrived back safely. Lieutenant Commander Malco asked me to watch over you. You appear to have inhaled a lot of silica-based substances. We flushed most of it from your system, but the rest will have to leave naturally. We don't think that you've been poisoned or anything, though. So he tries to give you like a reassuring look, but he's also kind of, you can see him staring at the pips on your uniform. Your EV suit, you notice you're not wearing it. You're wearing the Starfleet uniform underneath. But I believe everybody transported up okay. They're in the captain's ready room at the moment.
Okay.
Would you like me to call for somebody, or
No,
I should call for somebody, as he kind of realizes he's asking you this, but clearly he's forgotten in that second about his orders. As he like panically taps his communicator, and Malco, as I imagine the captain is kind of expressing what happened on her side of the ship, just as she gets to it, before hearing your accounts, you get the blip on your communicator. And what is the name of this ensign?
This would be Ensign Connor.
Connor. It's like, Lieutenant Commander Sozin, Ensign Connor here. Lieutenant Commander Odie is awake. He appears to be fine. I think. I should run some more tests, but he's awake. And you can tell he's nervous. I imagine, Siltek, you might know him. He's also somebody who's kind of fresh out of the academy, new to the crew, as it were. And he clicks out. And Tristan, you see, he does the usual tests to make sure that you're cognizant. You can definitely feel those lingering feelings, that desperation to communicate and the frustration of not being able to, and the curiosity. How are you feeling? What are you thinking right now as you're sat in medbay? You've got this young ensign who's, you know, poking and prodding and running. Yeah. He's got one of those scanners, you know, the updated version of the annoying McCoy scanner, as he kind of does stuff there to check over, write stuff down on a pad.
I mean, that's very annoying to Tristan, but he's dealing with it because he knows that this poor guy's got to do his job. But he's like, okay. But yeah, I think Tristan is running through what this could possibly mean. Obviously, he has the same concerns about the silicate being in, possibly infecting other life forms, but he's now also concerned that this mind meld or whatever it was that happened may also be a method of infection or invasion or anything like that, and he's running through those possibilities in his head, and weighing up whether or not he should recommend that he himself be quarantined.
Okay. You have a think through this, and go ahead and make me a either reason or insight with what would be either command or medicine, whichever one is higher for you.
Okay.
And it's going to be difficulty 1 because you are an empath and you have an understanding of how telepathy works, and to some degree probably of how Vulcan mind melds work as well. Okay. Perhaps it's the one topic that you've maybe spoken about with the captain as a, on a late night shift on the bridge or something.
Oh, that's one success and a complication.
And a complication. I'm going to take the threat, so nothing bad happens now. You have a think what you know of Vulcan mind melds, and the same conclusion comes as it did to Malco. Those Vulcans were dead. They were not alive. You detected, with that mind meld, you detected nothing of the Vulcans. The captain had, I imagine you've had this conversation as two people who have got telepathy, and perhaps in a, like I said, a late night conversation on the bridge where one of you would ask the other how it appeared, perhaps even the captain asking what it felt like to constantly be aware of other people's emotions like that in a way that perhaps she isn't with her telepathy. And you know that when a Vulcan mind melds, they share a piece of themselves in that sense. They are opening their mind, and therefore they are almost as free to move around yours as you are theirs, unless they have training that prevents that. But you felt nothing of the Vulcans there. You would have expected, thinking about it, to have, if they were alive, to have picked up on some kind of personality, memory, thoughts. But it wasn't. It's almost like the Vulcans themselves were merely used as a conduit.
Okay.
You knew that these creatures were drawn to electrical energy, and it's possible to, in a creature that has not been dead for too long, and in the conditions that the planet was in, decomposition hadn't really begun to take place because the oxygen in the atmosphere had been chemically altered with the silicates. So, but what you also know, as is very apparent as this young ensign, you get like a small electrical shock as he tests some reflex or something, probably in an arm or the knee. And as the joint kind of, as you instinctively, the muscle tenses in an odd way that you cannot control. The thought of electrical stimulation to the brain or a muscle or a nervous system might explain the strange, odd movements.
Okay.
And that perhaps that presence that you had felt before, this vast presence, is that vast connected consciousness that you were feeling. And that perhaps these Vulcans, there was no transference as such, but simply something had hijacked their ability to communicate telepathically.
Gotcha. So, not going to lock myself away. I'm going to patiently wait out these tests and think about heading to where I need to go. Just getting a bit antsy and wanting to communicate what I know and what I experienced with the captain and everybody else.
Okay, I imagine that the ensign sees you being a bit uncomfortable. It's like, I'm so sorry, Lieutenant Commander, but I really can't let you go until I've done these tests. And in the ready room, what account do all of you give your captain? As she looks at you and says, "We've had some very strange happenings up here. We were unable to contact you, and shortly after Chief Petty Officer Elena, when you asked us for transportation, we noticed a shift in the atmosphere. It looked like some kind of geomagnetic storm as such. Something in the atmosphere picked up. It wasn't universal. It's like it shifted rapidly, like no storm we have ever seen. But indeed, it seemed to jump from place to place around the planet."
Was I able download data from the probe when I was interacting with it?
Yes, you understood that it wasn't a whole ton because it couldn't really see much. I
Sure.
think if I remember it, you got information that it did go through, it did have a collision with something, and that it wasn't so much damage as impact damage that kind of killed it. It was the battery being rapidly drained.
I'd pull that information up, turn my pad around, and hand it to the captain.
She holds on to it and says, well, that is interesting. Did you find anything else about you? I imagine you've told her like the baseline story. She's like,
Yeah.
These creatures, so you believe they feed on this energy?
It's possible,
Seems to
ma'am.
be that way.
Let's see.
Do my lungs have sensors? I'm not asking the captain. I'm just, I'm just asking in general. Like, do I know if my lungs have like sensors that they could read?
I imagine they wouldn't be quite that advanced.
Okay.
She kind of looks around and says, and these life forms, I assume, do not match any that we have seen before.
I can
Farron,
certainly say I've never seen weird gas emitting tentacled energy monsters in
Yep.
Captain.
Then we find
I have
ourselves...
not seen the Vanta Blacks before.
Then it appears that we have a first contact on our hands. I hope you all understand the seriousness of this situation.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe that these creatures were inherently hostile? She looks
Maybe
around
not.
for
Inherent?
all of you.
Tristan, ma'am. Tristan may. Sorry, not Tristan. Ma'am, Lieutenant Odie, Lieutenant Commander Odie may have communicated with the creatures roughly. They didn't look like they were trying to hurt us. They looked like they were trying to speak with us.
I see. That is interesting. Perhaps when the Lieutenant Commander is free from sickbay, he can come to tell us his story. Otherwise, in the meantime, I would like to hear your hypothesis about what is going on down on that planet. And the state of the Vulcan Expeditionary Group.
Well, ma'am, every Vulcan we saw was dead. Dead from exposure long before we got there. And as far as my theory about what's going on, ma'am, I saw plenty of calves birthed back in Montana. I think this was a mother with a brood of babies looking to terraform a planet she could live on.
So perhaps those ships were birthing pods
Organic,
of some
ma'am.
kind?
Yes, ma'am.
You said they were causing the atmosphere, is that correct? They were adding to it, dissolving, your report said?
Yes, ma'am. Could have been a process that they were using to make another planet habitable. It makes sense.
Well, if that is the case, there is nothing stopping them from terraforming the planet. It belongs to nobody. It is currently inhabited by nobody, according to our reports. Lieutenant Commander Farron, and she looks at you, Illyria. From what you've seen of their ships, is it in your expertise opinion that these ships were built for this purpose? For terraforming? For getting these creatures to the planet? Or do you believe that they are war-capable ships and we are looking at something more hostile?
I think Alira will I think that she probably sketched out kind of what she could think of, and she'll say, I don't think they're war capable. I don't think it was intended to do harm. I think it just did. And then she's gonna show like the little like pods that were inside, and like kind of explain that like it was a machine but it wasn't, and it has like some of the similar capabilities, but that like she didn't observe anything that was innately hostile, like weapons or anything. Just kind of an over.
But yet, we still have no idea what these creatures actually look like, aside from the tentacle described in all of your reports. Chief Medical Officer, you are sure that these Vulcans, they were not killed by these creatures directly? They died of exposure, your report says?
That's correct, Captain. I think they were acting on more instinct to feed on what they could, and they may have some semblance of intelligence, but not enough to know that they're necessarily hurting things that they may come into contact with.
I see.
They attacked and took the energy from battery packs or energy reserves, but didn't seem to be attacking the Vulcans or humans themselves.
I see. And she goes to say something until there's a communication that says, and you can hear this, and it's, Captain, we are detecting huge fluctuations in this magnetic storm. It's moving again and rapidly, and this is coming from the bridge. It's shifting around the planet, and it's not moving. It's as if it's just appearing in one place and then another. Captain, this is huge. And she looks at all of you, nods, hits the communicator back and says, send the ship to red alert. We're going to the bridge. And exits the room, expecting you assume at this point, expecting you to follow. And Tristan, it is at this point.
Sorry.
Yes. It's at this point, when you start to see the red beacons flash, that you are walking towards, I imagine, the bridge to go to the ready room.
Yeah.
And you hear the call for all senior officers to make their way to the bridge, which of course most of you are already there. And Trisha, when you arrive on the bridge, you can see the captain has got the planet on screen. And what you see, as you saw before when you first approached, was it was just that dark ball in front of the bright blue sun that the planet orbited. And now you can see in the surface the ripples, the geomagnetic storm. There's almost a slight, what looks like lightning, but probably isn't. It's probably some effect of the magnetic conductivity of it. As it rapidly flashes, you see it in one side and then the other, and then here, as it rapidly goes off over and over again, almost in a pattern. The captain is looking at the screen and says, what are we looking at? And looks back at you. I've been down there. What is this? Lieutenant Commander Tristan Odie, it is good to see you. I am glad you are okay. Please, what can you tell us from your account? We are missing that. It was mentioned that these creatures were aware, intelligent?
I think so. Certainly conscious. I'm not entirely sure that we're looking at creatures. This may be creature, or certainly some connected intelligence, a web of information. I've never experienced anything like it before. There wasn't emotion, but there was concepts, curiosity, confusion. I think this may be something new.
I see.
But
well,
it has a desire to communicate. It has a desire to understand.
I see. Perhaps there is something that we can do if it can communicate. You are sure of this? It is capable of such a thing?
Yes.
And you see she's pondering on this for a moment, and almost instantly you recognize the look of the cogs turning in the back of the mind as she snaps her head towards you, Row. Says, "What can you tell us about the magnetic fields and what's happening now?"
Can I run scanners?
You can. It's going to be insight plus science with a difficulty of 2, but the ship is going to assist you with its sensors and science. It does have advanced sensor suites as well, so
That is good because my
that will
science
help
is
out.
1.
Oh no. Let's see.
I just fly the ship.
So as long as you get a success, you've got an extra one from the ship there.
Okay, so it's it was science. What was the other one?
Science and insight.
Insight. Okay, so I need to beat 10 or less. Okay, so 2 successes and a complication. It looks like.
Yeah, because the ship also, because you got a success, the ship's success counts towards it. You start running scanners, and you can see that these electrical storms, it's kind of jumping. And oddly enough, there's a part of you that it reminds you of almost like a searchlight. Like the way that you might take a spotlight and rapidly shift it, looking for something. Just in the way that it kind of appears, and it's not instantaneous. It looks like it's jumping from one place to another, but it's actually moving very quickly, which you can't pick up visually, but you can pick up on the scanners as if it's kind of shifting from one place to another. You also pick up in the midst of the atmosphere and this geomagnetic storm, creatures. For the first time, it looks like the shift in this storm and obviously the information that you have to recalibrate sensors. For the first time, like you did on the planet with your tricorders, just that once, you pick up life. Silicate-based. Strange, from what you can get on the scanners, pod-like creatures. Large, pod-like in shape with these tendrils or tentacles that come off of the end. They appear, from what you can see, to be propelling through the atmosphere by some means. Perhaps the atmosphere itself allows them to do this by nature of their chemical composition, some unique traits about their physiology. Malco, you could probably theorize that. But for the first time, you truly start to see life. And there are hundreds just on the area that you have scanned of these pods. And they don't seem to slightly shift with this, but they all appear to just kind of be the movement's almost random. But this geomagnetic storm is definitely moving the planet. It almost reminds you of a scanner in itself.
Okay. Well, then she'll, probably just kind of report that to the captain. She'll sort of pivot in her chair and go, Captain, looks like we've got, with the scanners recalibrated, there's some sort of, almost looks like a scanning beam in the atmosphere that's moving around. We're not seeing it visually, but scanners are picking up. It looks like almost like it's probing the atmosphere repeatedly. And I'm showing a lot of life signs. They actually kind of look like, I think on Earth they call them squid, some sort of cephalopod. It's the weirdest thing. It looks like they're swimming through the atmosphere. So that's really the only way I can think of to describe it. But if there's hundreds of these things, either there's a lot more of those pods than we thought, or they're reproducing like tribbles down there.
You can have a point of determination for celiopods. I can't even say the word, but you can have a point of determination for being able to do that on the spot. That's impressive. The captain looks at you. See, well, your report said that there were multiple impact sites. That would make sense. This scanning beam, and she looks over at you, Tristan. Did you see any technology that would indicate such a thing, or do you believe this to be something else? You mentioned a presence. Could
I
this
think
be a physical manifestation?
I think so. I think it's. I think it might be looking for us.
Looking for you?
For the people that were down there, potentially. We made contact with it. Its curiosity was piqued. It wanted to know more.
And you say, from the reports of your fellow officers here, and she looks round to everybody, and she's standing with her back to the view screen now as she looks at you. And you can see that all non-essential staff have been cleared from the bridge. Clearly, she has taken this as a first contact situation, but one that comes with a great amount of danger. And also tact, as you're dealing with a creature in which, from all the reports that you have given so far, you didn't know how to communicate with. She looks at all of you. Let's see. You said that it was the deceased Vulcans that made contact.
I don't believe it was the deceased Vulcans, but rather this entity, this energy, using the bodies of the Vulcans as a method of attempting to communicate. When I reached out to it telepathically, and the concept that I proposed to it seemed to affect all of the Vulcans, as if they were all connected. They shared the same mind.
I see. Then why did it not speak?
I don't
Presumably,
think it has the capacity.
perhaps it is not used to having such a physical form.
Perhaps not.
In which case, we need to make contact with it, would you agree? This is a first contact situation. You have determined, and from your reports, I believe in what you say that these creatures are not inherently hostile. Therefore, it is our duty as Starfleet officers to do what we can here and get to the bottom of this situation.
I agree, Captain.
If you believe, Lieutenant Commander Odie, that perhaps this storm that we are seeing is some kind of physical manifestation of this mind searching for something to reach out to, perhaps we should reach out.
Yes, I think that's as good a plan as any.
Suggestions? She looks around at all of you.
I think in person first, second contact in this case might be inadvisable, considering we can't breathe down there, and well, the environmental suits are fragile in these instances, at least by the standards we saw. The atmospheric disturbances would make taking a shuttlecraft down tricky, but now that we know what to expect, I might be able to get one down there. Might make things a little bit better. But if there's any way that we can communicate telepathically from up here, I'm not really sure how all that works, but I think that'd be the safest option.
I am inclined to agree with you, Chief Petty Officer. I think being on the ship is perhaps the safest, especially if this creature does not understand the dangers of the atmosphere to us humanoid creatures up here. Plus up here we have a much better use of the universal translator. We can put the ship's power behind it.
Ma'am, and I hesitate to even suggest this, but when the creatures were inside the bodies of the Vulcans, they appeared to try to mind meld with Lieutenant Commander Odie.
And this is where she looks interesting, because I don't think anyone has necessarily used the words mind meld yet.
I'm no expert, ma'am. And I know it's a sensitive issue, but it's what it looks like to me.
I see. Well, Lieutenant, perhaps you have been lucky in that you are a Betazoid and not a Vulcan.
I think that may be accurate, yes.
This consciousness, how large? Large enough? And she looks at the planet as if in a knowing way, as if to say, that big?
I think, yeah, we're looking at the whole thing.
I'm going to go to my ready room. I need to make a call to Starfleet and make them aware of the situation. By the time I come back, I want a solution in how we are going to communicate with that entity. You have
Yes,
10
ma'am.
minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
She goes to the ready room, and as she
Arm
walks
being
in,
torpedoes. I'm kidding.
you
Sorry.
can hear her as the doors close that she is calling Starfleet Command to make them aware of this. You now have 10 minutes to figure out how you want to try and communicate with this consciousness. Tell me, what do you want to try? Technobabble is encouraged here. Tropey, typical Trek things that are used to make things work and stuff happen is also encouraged here.
Okay.
Hey, what if we took a graviton particle beam, bounced it off the main deflector dish into the planet, and like a Morse code type of thing?
Oh, yeah. Like hit them with like, just like ones and zeros. Everyone could figure that out, right? Everyone's got some kind of ones and zeros. Yeah.
Tell me what to rewire.
Can we hook
Solution
the
is
beta?
definitely the main deflector dish.
Can we hook the Betazoid up to the deflector dish? Can we just like beam out? Like,
I mean,
like some good psychic vibes.
This is TNG, and I'm pretty sure they've done weird brain hooking up stuff before. We're in the right era for it, so...
I mean, Lieutenant Commander, how much of this do you think you can take?
Yeah, but we'll find out, I suppose.
Okay,
Get in
so
the brain machine.
am I understanding that what you want to do is you want to bounce a graviton beam off of your main deflector dish into the planet in order to send some kind of signal or pick one up, and then attempt to have that signal sent telepathically to some degree, or outputted in a way that your ship's counselor here can detect it telepathically, perhaps running it through the universal translator to try and understand what's happening.
Neat.
I was completely joking about the graviton beam, but
Nah, we're
but
all on it
something to
now.
that
Like
effect,
people are
yeah.
hitting buttons and things. It's over. We are in.
We've committed.
Oh no.
all right.
So normally, like, rewarding momentum isn't a thing, but I feel like I'm going to give you a point of bonus momentum here to spend immediately to spend on something during a test on that. Just for even joking about bouncing a graviton particle beam off of the main deflector dish, because there is a song that deeply reminds me of, and it puts me in a good mood. So.
Voltaire song.
Yes.
I love it.
Okay, so there's going to be a few steps to this, and I'm going to make you do a few quick rolls, because otherwise we'll be here forever with the technobabble speech. So the first thing that you are going to have to do is you're going to have to set up the main deflector dish to do what you want it to do. So Illyria, this is going to be a test for you, because you are the engineer, and because it's not just positioning it, it's you need to set it up not only to deflect this graviton particle, but also to receive whatever is coming back. So I'm going to ask you to make me. It's going to be an engineering and reason test with a difficulty of 2. Do remember that you now have 6 momentum in your momentum pool. So
Okay.
you can buy up to, well, you can buy all of the extra dice if you wanted to.
Okay. Can I use my cautious engineering?
You can.
Okay,
So-
so I'm gonna go ahead and get a momentum.
So you're going to spend 1 to get an extra dice. Yeah.
Yes, but I'm gonna
And
use
that
my
allows you
cautious-
to. Yeah. So you're rolling 3d20 and you get to re-roll one of them.
Okay. And my number is 15 to beat.
Nice.
And you have starship construction as a focus, which I'm going to let apply here, as well as mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
Sweet.
So you hit your momentum pool full. Would you like to spend any of that extra momentum before it's lost, because you can only ever have 6 in the pool at once, to improve the result of that test at all? So you can actually use it to create a truth or a trait that might help lower the difficulty of other tests.
Yes, I would like
So-
to do that.
Tell me what it is about what you've done that makes it so good it's going to help out in the long run.
Oh, I don't even know. That was the question I was afraid of. So wait, our goal. So right now I'm angling the
deflected
thing that's the beam's gonna bounce off of. Is there a way to? Well, I know that there's issues with the atmosphere and like different like distortions. Is there a way to edit how it's reflected to kind of fill in the holes that may be caused by the atmosphere? Does that make any sense? Okay.
It absolutely does. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be a truth essentially, in that you avoid some of the atmospheric conditions. You have adjusted for them. So what that will actually do is it will lower the difficulty of the final test.
Okay, perfect.
Yay. So you get that set up. Malco and Tristan, it's going to be the two of you that have got to figure out how to communicate this back. Slightly telepathically, because you've got the universal translator, but that doesn't necessarily translate everything, and you know that perhaps Tristan's expertise in understanding emotion here are going to be just as valuable as understanding the words that might be spoken through the translator. How are the both of you working together to figure out a way to allow this to happen?
I was thinking of just maybe trying to help with the setup of maybe him receiving, just to make sure that we're not like overloading the information that we're trying to bring back in some way.
So I'm imagining through maybe like a neural interface or something that you've kind of linked this up so that you can control how much is coming through. Okay. So go ahead, Malco. I need you to make me this is going to be reason and medicine test. It's going to be difficulty 3, and Tristan, I'd like you to assist.
Okay.
And I'd like you to assist with either insight and medicine or insight and engineering.
Okay. Let's go with insight and engineering.
Okay, so Malco, you're going to make the roll first. Would you like to buy any dice? There is 6 momentum in the pool right now.
I will buy one more dice.
Okay, so you're rolling 3d20 for me, and as long as you get a success, anything that Tristan adds to that is gonna add to your successes.
Okay. So the target is 16.
So that's 2 successes and a complication so far. Tristan, go ahead and roll your assist. So we're looking for 1 more success there.
Yep, that's a success.
That is a success. Okay, so that is the 3 that you needed. Malco, you outfit Tristan with this neural interface and you wire it into the ship, directly into the feedback from the deflector dish that Illyria has set up so well. And you are close by on hand to control what's incoming. Ro, you are the person that is going to have to send that graviton beam. You are also the person that is going to have to man that universal translator. So,
Okay.
along with Siltec, actually, at this point, because you are a younger officer, fresh out, and the reason you are here is the captain probably wants you to get the learning experience.
Fair enough.
So, although you are actually very well kind of weapons trained in that sense, they're not needed here. So, I think you are probably. I think you're probably going to be.
So I'm good.
Nice.
Sorry.
I think then you're going to be assisting the chief petty officer.
Awesome.
So it's up to you which one of you wants to lead the test. But now this is set up, you need to fire off the graviton particle beam. Who would like to lead this test and who would like to assist?
What are the attributes that are being used again?
For this one, it's going to be reason and con.
Reason and con. My reason is 7 and con is 5. So if we're using con, I think all of my stuff is in con. So I think Ro will take point on that.
Okay.
I
So
have a
you sit
question.
down. Yeah.
Is this a place where I could use my collaboration con?
Let me have a look at the talent spec. You pardon me. You can. What is your discipline score for con?
4. Is that lower or higher?
If you wish.
Mine's at 5.
Okay.
If you wish, I will allow you to. Siltec, what's your con score?
My con score is 4.
Is 4. So normally, yes, Illyria, you could, but because the discipline is the same, or in this case for Ro, it's higher than yours is. However, if you've got a focus that you think would help here, I'll allow you to use that bit of collaboration. What focuses have you got?
Got starship construction, warp core technology, mechanical engineering, and then the rest of them are constellations, lip reading, and disguise.
Do you know what? Because this is linked to the universal translator, you're kind of having to send it through that and back. I'm going to say that your lip reading and sign language will apply here because you have an understanding of language outside of like regular verbal communication.
Cool.
So it's not so much that you're using lip reading or sign language, but you understand how to translate the spoken word into other forms of communication, probably better than other people, like anyone else here other than perhaps Tristan. So I'm going to let that apply.
Cool.
So I'm going to say, Ro, this is going to apply to your test. Siltec, not so much to yours because you're assisting. So go ahead and make me that test, Ro. You're looking
Do we
for...
have any momentum left?
You currently have 5 momentum left.
Okay, I'm going to use 1.
Sure. So go ahead. You're rolling 3d20. You're looking for a difficulty 3.
Okay, and then one quick question. I have helm operations as a focus. Would that apply?
Let me have a quick look. Helm operations. You can only have 1 focus supply at a time. So I'm going to say that in this case, what you're doing, because it involves the universal translator as well as bouncing this beam, that actually Illyria's focus is probably going to serve you better.
Agreed. Okay.
Because it's more specific.
4, 18, 11, and reason and con is 12 total, so just 2 successes.
It's going to be 3 because you've got a focus and you've rolled under your con discipline. So that's 3. So Siltec, go ahead and roll your assist. If you get any here, you're going to get some momentum back.
So I just rolled 2 for that?
You're just rolling 1 for an assist.
1, gotcha, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just hit it once. Oh, it didn't roll, I'm sorry, hang on. Oh, that's not great.
That's okay,
20.
I'm gonna save that up, it's fine. But you do manage to do it. You send out the graviton beams. I imagine
I fall over a console.
I imagine that you tried to help out and you pressed the wrong button, but Ro manages to kind of fix it. And it's not that you do anything bad, it's just it's been set up differently to what you'd expect, a deflect dish to be used for. But you managed to send out.
Rear airlock is opening. And like, nope, click, and just shut that down real quick.
I think Rose just gonna like reach over and be like, "This is a little different than what they teach at the academy. Let me show you how you actually do this."
Good. I am paying attention.
The captain comes out of the ready room and sees that you're in process. She nods at all of you as she takes her place in front of the view screen as she watches what happens and turns her back to it, looking over at you as you're all at work. And she gives you the knowing nod of please continue. And you send out the first message, the typical, Ro, you probably know this. You've probably been very well versed in kind of situations such as this. You're familiar with Starfleet protocols. It is the typical first contact message. The explanation of the who, the what, the why. And a signal comes back. Malco and Tristan, the two of you are going to make the big final roll. Then I'm going to allow you to ask whatever you wish, or for me to tell you what communication comes back to find out about this creature, this entity. This would have been a difficulty 5 test. However, Illyria managed to set this up incredibly well. So it filtered out any of the distortion, any issues that the gravity storm would have caused. So it's going to drop down to 4. And the fact that these tests to send off the message and run it through the universal translator was also successful, I'm going to drop it down to 3. So, this is going to be, it's up to you who leads on this, whether you want it to be Tristan trying to take in as much of it as possible from what you're hearing on the translator and the feelings, because even the translator here will not be perfect because you're dealing with a telepathic creature, to vocalize that, or whether you're putting it on Malco to filter through just enough to make that make sense. Depends on which way you want to do it and who's taking point. That will decide on what kind of test is being made. So who is taking the lead of this? Are we relying on Tristan to kind of figure that out, with Malco kind of assisting by making sure nothing's being overloaded? Or are we putting it to Malco to filter through what needs to be done, and then for Tristan to use that to put it together?
If we're voting, I vote Tristan, because Tristan's the only one that's talked to these things before.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay.
I'll help you.
Okay. The captain walks over to you, Tristan, as everyone turns to look at you, as you are informed by Ro, Siltek, and Illyria that the signal has come back. And Illyria, you confirm that this signal is what it should be. And she just places a hand on your shoulder. You have good abilities, Lieutenant Commander. Enjoy your first contact. She smiles. You're not sure whether she knows what she means by when she tells you to enjoy it, but you get the sentiment.
Yeah.
In which case then, I'm going to ask you to make me an insight, plus it's going to be command.
Okay.
And because you are going to leave the test, I'm going to drop the difficulty down again, because you are telepathic and you've had contact before, so it's going to be difficulty 2. And Malco, you are going to assist.
Okay. I'm gonna use one of our momentum to get an extra dice on this.
Well, you have got 5 momentum in the pool right now,
Yeah.
so you can actually
extra
have
die.
2 extra dice if you want.
Use them.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Use them.
All
So
the
you're
dice.
rolling,
Sound like-
you're rolling 4d20,
Okay.
and Malco, you're
We're
rolling
gonna play-
1d20. Malco, you're going
Every
to use...
RPG I've ever played with like 80 potions saved up at the end. Use the dice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Malco, you're going to be rolling me reason and medicine, as you try to make sure that, the amount of data feeding back isn't overloading. Go ahead and roll those dice for me, please.
There we go. Okay. Ooh.
So that is going to be...
That's 2 for me.
2 for
4
you. Okay.
4
And-
successes for me. I mean, unless I have a focus which works, in which case that's
What focuses have you got?
hollow technology, computers, interrogation, roller disco, artificial intelligence.
I will allow interrogation to work here, although you're not directly interrogating. I think some of
Yeah.
the skills here are the same, and that you're trying to figure out what's really going on. So you've got a full momentum pool again, and you do communicate. Would you like me to tell you what you find out?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, oh, my PDF has shifted. Here we go. These creatures you find out over the course of the next hour call themselves or refer to themselves as Krillin. You get to the generalization that this Krillin mind, is a huge planetoid-sized entity. It is telepathic, and it uses electrical signal, electrical energy mixed with that gravitation storm that you're feeling in order to reach out. The pods on the planet, those creatures, are almost extensions of that. They are part of this hive mind. It takes even longer to kind of find this out, but they did not intend to kill the Vulcans. Once you are able to express here what you were trying to express, Tristan, on the planet, that they were killing you, they focused only on the electromagnetic power signatures of the EV suits. They could not pick up the minute magnetic fields that creatures give off within their atmosphere. They couldn't detect that behind the EV power suits. So they attacked the suits, not realizing that the creatures within them were even there, let alone that they couldn't live without them. They are colonizing the planet. They have been hibernating for centuries in those ships that you saw. And Illyria, you were correct. They were not warp capable, but they were capable of sublight travel at incredibly high speed. And both you and Malco were correct when you said that they were bioships. Those ships were living entities. They were designed to keep the pods, one of which you pulled the tentacle off of on the planet, alive until they could find somewhere to impact, and the ships themselves could begin to terraform the planet. They are not overly hostile. At least that is what they put forward. They do not wish to.
From a distance.
There is in effect, there is almost an apology, like they did not mean to harm. But they also do not understand. They do not understand why you cannot breathe in their atmosphere. They do not quite understand what you are or what Starfleet is. But they understand that you are not hostile. In these moments, is there anything that you wish to impart upon the Krillin? Anything that you wish to leave them parting with as something of how they would view Starfleet here as they begin this journey of learning about other entities other than themselves, and you the same? You have the opportunity now to say something, to impart something with these creatures.
No pressure.
Through
Is that
Tristan.
Just for Tristan?
No, for any of you.
I think Ro would make the suggestion to pass on, basically say we're just your friendly neighbors, something to that effect, like howdy neighbor sort of a comment.
Okay. So you know that there is friendship, I guess. Is that what you're trying to get across?
Yeah.
Okay. Tristan, I'm sure you can put this across. Is there anything you personally want to put across? Because you had a very personal confrontation with these creatures.
If I got the sense of an attempt at some kind of an apology, then I will impart a sense of forgiveness in return, and an understanding of that attempt on their behalf.
Okay, and it's odd because it's not quite an apology. It's more of, it's not sorry. It's just we didn't know.
Yeah.
We don't understand, and I think there is almost a panic there a little bit that they didn't understand and they don't know why they don't understand. And as you impart that it is okay, you get the sense that they will take that on as we will be more aware. There is a sense that they want to learn. And obviously the captain does her bit explaining who Starfleet are, make sure she's already begun preparations to have, you know, an emissary crew sent here in order to try and find a way to work with this mind to inform it of what it needs to know. Is there anything else anyone wants to impart before essentially the situation is considered at least resolved for now until someone can come along?
My experimental device, my little portable hollow tech device that has a whole bunch of hollow novels and sort of some basic artificial intelligence stuff in there, would I be able to, through communicating with this thing, get an understanding that the Krillin would have any way of using or understanding this technology?
I think when you explain it, they don't know what hollow is, they don't know what artificial intelligence is, but I think once you start commenting that there's electrical signal, there is an understanding that they might find a way.
Okay, and I'll offer that to them as a library of sorts, a primer, if on us.
In which case, the captain arranges that, asks you to upload any other relevant stuff, so perhaps things about humanoid life, about Starfleet and the Federation, and arranges that to be sent down in a probe, that this time the creature understands what it is. And you can see on your readings the probe makes it safely down, and these Krillin pods as such, you can spot them begin to fuss around it. And quite how they'll use it, you're not sure, but you can tell that this entity is keen to find out. It is perhaps a week later, that it's a week that you spend here until the emissary arrives, as you don't want to leave this planet with these fledgling creatures, although they seem to be far older than perhaps just newborn entities are, until the emissary arrives with what looks like a small fleet of various ships and runabouts in order to perform the duties here, and you are relieved. As a crew, you are commended for your work and are assured that this will definitely be noted in your records. As you leave this sector, finishing your reports at the end of that long week, many of you, I imagine all of you on the bridge senior officers, have spent time speaking to this entity, educating it on things that you are knowledgeable about. One of the last things that it communicates through that you find very strange is when you are on the bridge, Siltek, just coincidentally, you are here, you are running through some drills, perhaps, with one of the senior command officers, or perhaps even Ro. And Trishan, as you're having a conversation with this entity, and it's telling you things now, it states that while it was asleep, it passed a planet, and it felt... You feel like it says another of its kind, but you don't think it means another Krillin. You think it's talking about another telepathic entity. Not the same as itself, but another entity. Which isn't unknowable. If there is one telepathic entity like this, there could be hundreds of others that share the same qualities, but it's very distinct in that it is not the same as it, but it felt this entity. And Siltek, this is a bridge call comes through, and the captain isn't on duty at the moment. Whoever is senior on the bridge takes it. Perhaps even you take it, Ro, as it comes through. I imagine it's like a beta shift. It's in the night time, so it's not the bridge isn't heavily manned. You are not in danger here. And Ro, there's a call that comes through. This is the office of Commander Chahal. Is your captain available?
This is Chief Ro. Is the captain available? Do I know, or?
She is not. She is currently asleep and resting. So unless it is urgent.
Okay. So yeah, she'll just relay that. Yeah, the captain's it's currently part of her rest cycle, unless it's urgent. Otherwise, I can help you.
It's not incredibly urgent, but it is news that she should receive upon waking. We have requested to Starfleet that you are called out here to Ashgrave 4. Ro, you would definitely have heard of this place. This planet is known as Footfall. It is in Federation space, but considered neutral, and it is a place of significant religious pilgrimage for many different species, religions. You may have heard of this planet yourself. You may have even been there, but you absolutely know what this place is. Commander Chahal here, Federation's diplomatic officer, requested aid a week ago, but we were told that you were on important work. She would very much like to have. She's very much like to have your crew be the ones to deal with this situation. She has requested you all specifically through Starfleet. I believe you'll be getting your orders soon, but she asked to call ahead, especially to inform Siltek Null that she would be glad to see his presence again and see how he is getting on. She requested that this message be passed on, and she would wanted to inform you informally herself through this message that she has requested you specifically.
All right, I'll be sure that both of them get that message. I appreciate that, Commander.
You're welcome. Commander Chahal, she will be waiting upon your arrival at Ashgrave. And the communication cuts dead. And the captain wakes the next morning. And you are all informed that you are making your way to Ashgrave to deal with the incident there. She's still waiting for the information for that to come through. But she's also curious, Siltek, as to how you know Commander Chahal, who obviously we spoke about in the last session because you got a call as you were requested there.
Yes.
And it appears that your captain also knows Commander Chahal, which might key into as to why your crew has been requested in particular. But that is where we leave this mission tonight, after you made your first contact with the Krillin mind and managed to avoid a disastrous violation of the Prime Directive. So congratulations, friends. I really hope you enjoyed that adventure.
Totally.
That was fantastic.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
So
I was
cool.
tense for 2 hours. That was great.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. So that is the adventure Darkness from the book Strange New Worlds, which you can pick up from Modifius Entertainment.
Nice.
Through there. It's just popped up in chat. There we go. So if you want to have a look at the rest of the Star Trek Adventures line, as well as all the other books we have for this, there are 2 mission compendiums out. There's a whole bunch of quadrant books and division books as well. So all of the options, you can find that. That's where we're running all of our sessions from. It's from the Strange New World book. I think we're going to be having a poll on who gets a point of determination for the start of the next session. And that will probably be going up in chat. But let's go around, say hi, say hi to everyone, find out what you enjoyed about tonight and where we can find you on the internet. Let's go around. Let's go over to you, Darby, with Tristan. Again, massive shout out. This awesome character art that you saw in the trailer and on here was done by Darby, and it's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
Very much so.
how was this for you, and where can we find you on the internet?
That was amazing. Like, super stressful. I loved being like half dead, not able to breathe. Like, that was weirdly fun. Like, that whole thing was just like tense but really cool. But yeah, just from beginning to end, I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. Can't wait to see what comes next. You can find me on Twitter at Pixel Justice, and everywhere else I am at Malibu Derby 87.
Awesome. Well, it was great to see you make friends with the Krillin. I nearly thought it was going to go the other way at one point. So let's move around to our wonderful Cardassian Siltech Null. Aram, how are you?
I am great. It almost did go somewhere else. If I wasn't thinking about the fact that it was so flammable, there would have been some phaser rifles going off. That's the only thing that held me back.
Yeah, at that point I was like, are they going to try and fight the Vulcans? Or are they going to get it? Are they going to see what's going on? Because like, it's very difficult, even if it looks kind of peaceful. These things are like grabbing at you and smashing helmets and...
Yeah, they killed a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm proud of your Cardassian officer for like reining it in a little bit, not to make horse riding puns. Where can we find you on the internet, friend?
You can find me at Vardian everywhere, and you can also find me at God's Fall and Rise of the Demigods, which are 2 actual play D&D podcasts that I write and run.
Awesome. Definitely go check those out, friends. And moving forward, we have Illyria, a wonderful engineer, Jordan. How are we doing after that?
Oh my goodness, it was so good. I not only I love Star Trek Adventures because I feel more challenged than I think I ever have in a TTRPG, but also like the adventure, like, oh, I was there. I can't. Oh, it's so good. I felt like I was living it, which is always the best experience when you're playing these kinds of games. So.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Sam will be so happy if he's in chat or watches this back, because this is his adventure. He's actually the head of RPGs at Modiphius, which is, yeah. So I'm very glad I got to run it, and he's going to get to see it run. Where can we find you on the internet?
I am Sassy with Sander, pretty much everywhere. I do music YouTube videos under Sassy with Sander, so check those out. I am Adina on the Fate FM, Fate and the Faithful Maidens podcast, so be sure to check that out. And then also I help run a channel called Jam Game Streams where we do all sorts of willy-nilly crazy. We're supposed to be nerdy video gamers, but really we just cut each other's hair and do face makeup. So that's me.
That sounds great.
Moving on to someone equally as awesome, we have our Chief Petty Officer Ro. Raven, how are you doing after that tonight?
Oh, fantastic. That was amazing. I was trying to think of like a favorite part of the whole thing, but all of it was just fantastic. I can't pick a favorite part. It was all equally good.
I'm gonna say a few words. Graviton particle beam, deflected it.
Okay, yeah, that might be a little bit higher than everything else, but the whole thing was amazing. You can find me on Twitter at The Raven, which you can see right below my face here. I also run the Black Feather Guild on Twitch, which is at twitch.tv/RAVVYN. So just like my Twitter name, just take the V off the front of it. And we'll actually be running a show at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern tonight of The Peasant Strike Back, where basically we play the NPC peasants in your typical D&D campaign, trying to fight the collateral damage of the heroes.
Oh, I want to watch that so badly.
That sounds awesome.
It's pretty fun. It's always a riot. But thank you, Virginia, for running that fantastic session today. It was amazing.
You're welcome. I'm glad I got to run it for all of you. And speaking for people who are fantastic, we have our CMO, Malco Sorzen. How are you doing, Max? How was that for you?
Oh my goodness. I don't even have any words to put in how awesome that was. The entire time on that ship, I seriously thought, I was like, no, Malco needs to go over there. He needs to do something. And like, I couldn't quite do anything just yet, but it was so much fun, very stressful in a good way. And I just enjoyed it so much. But you can find me everywhere on the internet at MaximusJ07. I stream on Twitch occasionally, and I talk about tabletop role-playing games and various other bits of media on my Twitter. So please come stop by.
Awesome. Well, thank you, you wonderful, wonderful crew, for coming along on that adventure. I am Virginia. I'm the game master here. If that wasn't obvious. I help make, play, and publish tabletop RPGs. I actually work for the company that makes Star Trek Adventures, so I have a very deep love for this game for many reasons. I do a whole bunch of other stuff too outside of just making games, so I'm over here on Encounter Roleplay where I love running games, so you should come back next Friday as we start the new session into the new mission. You can also find me over on Twitch and Twitter at Tabletop Horde, where I stream games over on Twitch. Wednesdays is Tomb Raider / video game day, and this coming Monday I've got my follower voted stream, which you'll be able to vote on over on my Twitter probably later on tonight or tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that if you want to get a hand in choosing what I get to stream on Monday. But otherwise, don't forget you can pick up this awesome game from Modiphius, and if you want to keep supporting all of the casts here over Encounter Roleplay, I would definitely go and check out the Patreon that Encounter Roleplay has. That helps towards paying all of the wonderful cast here and helping support all of them for the amazing entertainment and wonderful role-playing that they bring all of us here. If you want more about the community, if you want to talk about tonight's session of Star Trek or any of the games, go over and join the community on Discord, on the Encounter Roleplay Discord, where everyone's in there. You can discuss all the different shows, talk tabletop RPGs. It's a wonderful, welcoming place. Please go do check it out. There is no Haunting of Seawall Orphanage directly after this show tonight as normal, but I believe regular scheduling will be back next week for that. So make sure that you are following the Twitch here, and that you're following Encounter Roleplay's Twitter so that you don't miss the next episode of the Haunting of Seawall Orphanage, the horror show, the original show, DM'd by the wonderful Donathan Fry. And that will be back next week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And if you haven't watched it, make sure you go and catch up on the YouTube. And if you are watching this on YouTube, thanks for making it towards the end with all of us, and we will see all of you next week for the next mission that I take this crew on and see if I can't put them through the ringer again. So have a wonderful evening, friends, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for joining us.